A careless tongue. My son, if you assume the debt of your friend, you will deliver your hand to an enemy, for a man's own lips become a strong snare to him, and he is conquered by the utterances of his own mouth. My son, do what I command you, and you will save yourself, for you came into the hands of evil things through your friend. Do not be faint, but provoke even your friend, for whom you assumed a debt. Do not give sleep to your eyes nor slumber to your eyelids, that you may be saved, as a gazelle from the snares, and as a bird from a trap. Laziness, a dead-end road. Compare yourself with the ant, O sluggard, and be zealous when you see his ways, and become wiser than he. For although he has no tilled land, neither any one to compel him, nor any master to rule him, yet he prepares all his food in the summer and makes his provisions abundant in the winter. Or go to the honey bee, and learn how she is a worker and how solemnly she does her work, whose labors kings and common people use for health, and she is desirable to all and glorious, and although she is weak in bodily strength, she leads the way in honoring wisdom. How long, O sluggard, will you be idle, and when will you arise from sleep? You sleep a little, you sit down a little, you doze a short while, and you fold your hands on your chest a little, then poverty comes to you as an evil traveler and neediness as a swift runner. But if you are diligent, your harvest shall come to you as a fountain, and neediness as an evil runner shall desert you. A lawless spirit. A man who is without discernment and is lawless does not walk in good ways. But he winks with an eye, he makes a sign with his foot, and teaches with the wavy of his hand. And with a perverse heart, he constantly schemes evil things. Such a man causes trouble in a city. Therefore his destruction comes suddenly, a deep and incurable wound. For he rejoices in everything the Lord hates, and he shall be broken because of his soul's uncleanness, a haughty eye, an unrighteous tongue, hands that shed righteous blood, a heart that devises evil thoughts, and feet that hasten to do evil. As a false witness he kindles injustice and causes quarrels between brethren. My son, guard the laws of your father, and do not depart from the rules of your mother. But fasten them to your soul continually and wear them as a collar upon your neck. Playing with fire. When you walk about, bring along this commandment and let it be with you, and as you sleep, let it guard you, that when you arise, it may speak to you. For a commandment of law is a lamp and a light, and the way of life is reproof and instruction, that you may keep yourself from a married woman and from the slanderous tongue of a strange woman. Do not let the desire of beauty conquer you, neither be caught by her eyes, nor captivated by her eyelids, for the value of a prostitute is only one loaf, and such a woman hunts for the precious souls of men. Shall any one bind fire to his bosom and his garments not burn? Or will any one walk about on coals of fire and not burn his feet? Likewise is the one who goes into a married woman, he shall not be guiltless, nor any who touch her. It is not surprising if any one who steals is caught, for he steals that he may fill his hungry soul, but if he is caught, he will repay sevenfold, and by giving all his goods, he shall deliver himself. But the adulterer through his lack of discernment obtains the destruction of his soul, he bears both pain and dishonor, and his disgrace will not be wiped away forever. For the anger of her husband is full of jealousy, he will not spare in the day of judgment, he will not take any ransom in exchange for his hatred, nor will he be reconciled by many gifts. Notes from the previous page. 6:1-40 This chapter warns against 4 vices or sinful passions: a careless tongue, verses 1-6. Laziness, verses 7-16, a lawless spirit, verses 17-25, and unlawful sexual intercourse, verses 26-40. 6:1-6 Assuming debt for a friend in this instance refers to a son of wisdom pledging with his lips to join with a friend in his evil undertakings, v1. As St. Paul said, evil company corrupts good habits, 1 Corinthians 15:33. With such a pledge, a man's tongue becomes his worst enemy, v2. Wisdom speaks to his son, commanding him to save himself, v3, for this Son cannot save his friend before he saves himself. And he certainly cannot save him while participating with him in his sins, v3. So wisdom commands his son to cease being a coward, do not be faint, v4, 2. Reject his careless pledge to his friend, and to provoke his friend to change as well. Furthermore, this son is to awake from his spiritual slumber and move forward quickly with this matter, that he may save himself, like a gazelle from the snares and a bird from a trap, verses 5, 6, see also Ephesians 5:14, 15. 6:7-16 Laziness, both of body and soul, leads to poverty, verses 13-15. But wisdom commands his son to be diligent, v16. To achieve this, he must mark the behavior of two created things, the ant and the honeybee. Outwardly they appear insignificant, v8. And weak, v12, but one who discovers their habits will also find the word and wisdom of God, who is Christ himself. And when he imitates their way of life through the grace of Christ, verses 7, 9, 10, 11, his laziness will be cured. 6:3-24 This passage is read during Thursday Vespers in the second week of Great Lent. 6:17-25 A lawless spirit is a person who rejoices in everything the Lord hates, v20. His soul is incurable as long as he continues on this path, v19. His vices or sinful passions are characterized by a haughty eye, arrogance, an unrighteous tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, and feet that run to evil, verses 21, 22, a troublemaker in the community, verses 17, 18, 23. But a child of wisdom can avoid a lawless spirit by guarding the laws and commandments of wisdom, and by fastening them to his soul like a collar around the neck, verses 24, 25. This collar is the golden chain, 110, of the general virtues, associated with the crown of discernment. This crown and chain are the virtues of discernment, and its synonyms, righteousness, courage, and self-control, which together beget all the other virtues of wisdom. 6:26-40 Unlawful sexual intercourse is sex outside the bonds of marriage. And when a man walks about, v26, and is tempted, the commandments of wisdom fastened to his soul will keep him from this vice or sinful passion. These commandments will also guard him while he sleeps, verses 27-29. But a man who lets down his guard and succumbs to this passion will ultimately destroy himself, verses 30-40. 6:32-33 Desire is a fire, and the flesh is like a garment. The latter is an easy prey, and the former is a tyrant. And when anything harmful is not only taken within, but also held fast, it will not go forth again until it has made an exit for itself. Figuratively speaking, he keeps a fire in his breast who permits an impure thought to dwell in his heart. And he walks upon coals who, by sinning in act, destroys his own soul. Saint Hippolytus. 6:24-40 This passage is read during Friday Vespers in the second week of Great Lent. A son with discernment. My son, guard my words, and hide my commandments within yourself, my son, honor the Lord, and you shall be strong, and fear none other but him. Guard my commandments and you will live, and my words as the pupils of your eyes, and put them around your fingers, and write them upon the breadth of your heart. Say that wisdom is your sister, and gain discernment as a friend for yourself, so they may keep you from a strange and evil woman, if she comes at you with flattering words. A son without discernment. For she looks from a window of her house into the streets upon whom she might see among the undiscerning children, a young man lacking discernment passing by near the corner on the pathways of her house, and she speaks in the darkness at evening, when there is silence on a dark night, and the woman meets him, having the appearance of a prostitute, she makes the heart of young men throb. She is excited and debauched, and her feet do not rest at home. For at times she is outside roaming about, and another time she is in the streets near every corner laying a trap. Then laying hold of him, she kisses him, and with a shameless face she says to him, I have a peace offering, today I pay my vows, for this reason I came out to meet you, longing for your face, I found you, I spread my bed with sheets and covered it with tapestry from Egypt. I sprinkled my bed with saffron and my house with cinnamon, come, and let us enjoy love until morning, come, and let us embrace in love, for my husband is not at home, but is gone on a long journey. Taking a bag of money in his hand, he will return to his house after many days. So she leads him astray with much conversation, and with snares from her lips she compels him. And being cajoled, he follows her as an ox is led for slaughter and as a dog to bonds, or as a deer struck with an arrow in the liver, and he hastens even as a bird into a snare, not knowing he runs for his life. Now therefore, my son, hear me, and hold fast to the words of my mouth, do not let your heart turn aside to her ways, for she wounded and cast down many, and those whom she slew are innumerable, her house is the road to Hades, leading down to the chambers of death. Divine wisdom for mankind. You shall proclaim wisdom that discernment may obey you, for she is on the lofty summit and stands in the midst of the paths. For she sits beside the gates of princes and sings at the entrances, you, O men, I exhort, and I utter my voice to the sons of men, understand astuteness, O simple ones, and put it in your heart, O uninstructed ones. Obey me, for I speak sacred things, and from my lips I will bring forth things that are true. For my mouth shall speak the truth, but false lips are an abomination before me. All the words of my mouth are with righteousness, there is nothing in them crooked or twisted. All things are evident to those who understand and true to those who find knowledge. Lay hold of instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than tested gold, and choose perception rather than pure gold. For wisdom is better than precious stones, and every costly thing is not worthy of her. I, wisdom, dwell with counsel, and I call upon knowledge and understanding. The fear of the Lord hates unrighteousness, and both rudeness and arrogance, and the ways of wicked men, and I hate the perverted ways of evil men. Counsel and safety are mine, discernment is mine, and strength is mine, by me, kings reign, and princes right of righteousness, by me, noblemen become great, and by me, monarchs have power in the land. I love those who love me, and those who seek me shall find me. Riches and glory belong to me, and abundant possessions, and righteousness, it is better to enjoy my fruits than gold and precious stones, and my fruits are better than choice silver. I walk in the ways of righteousness, and I am conversant with the paths of judgment, that I may distribute substance to those who love me, and may fill their treasuries with good things. Notes from the previous page. 7:1-27 This chapter contrasts two sons, one with the crown of discernment, verses 1-6, and the other without it, verses 7-24. A summary regarding both concludes this chapter, vv. 25-27. 7:1-6 Christ, the wisdom of the Father, begets discernment, the crown of the virtues, in his children. This passage explains how a son of wisdom may gain the crown of discernment as a friend, v5, that wisdom's commandments may keep him from unlawful sexual intercourse. Thus, he makes discernment his friend when he guards his commandments, verses 1-3, hides them in himself, v1, honors them, v2, and fears them, v2. This means a son should value wisdom's commandments as he would the pupils of his eyes, v3, and the fingers on his hands, v4. He writes these commands across his spiritual heart, v4, and confesses that they are like a sister to him, v5. 4. Just as a brother treats his sister with purity, the commandments of wisdom will keep his son from an adulteress, v6. 7:7-24 An adulteress easily captures the son without the crown of discernment, v10, and leads him to destruction. He is likened to an ox led for slaughter, v22, a dog tied up. v23, a deer pierced with an arrow, v23, or a bird that is trapped, v24. 7:25-27 The summation regarding the two sons is as follows. The wise son wearing the crown of discernment holds fast to wisdom's teachings, v25, and thus prevents his heart from turning aside to the ways of the adulteress, v26. But those without discernment are walking on the road to Hades and the chambers of death, and they are innumerable, verses 26-27. You have seen her mischief. Do not wait to admit the rising of lust, for her death is everlasting. And for the rest, by her words and arguments, she wounds, and by her sins she kills those who yield to her. For many are the forms of wickedness that lead the foolish down to Hades. Saint Hippolytus. 8:1 Wisdom is Christ himself, and we are to proclaim him to mankind. Discernment is the crown of the virtues, and it obeys the one who possesses it. This means the individual person is superior to the discernment he possesses, and he uses it in the proclamation of Christ. 8:135 This chapter has been called, The Divine Wisdom Manifest in Creation offers himself to mankind. It may be outlined as follows. Introduction, 8:1, Wisdom's relationship to mankind, 8:2, 21, Wisdom's relationship to the Father, 8:22, 30, and conclusion, 8:31, 35. 8:2-3 Wisdom is omnipresent and fills all things. 8:4-6 Wisdom speaks to every human being, O men and the sons of men, v4. Before they know him, they are simple and uninstructed, v5. If they obey wisdom out of love for him, he will give them astuteness, verses 5, 6. Astuteness is the crown of the virtues, 14:25. 8:7-8 Wisdom is the truth of the Father and only speaks the truth, verses 6b, 7. Since he is the truth, he only speaks what is righteous, there is nothing unrighteous in his words. His righteousness is one of the general virtues that begets all the other virtues. In John 14:6, he said, I am the truth. 8:9 All things are the sacred things of v6. These things are evident to those who have the crown of understanding through knowing wisdom and obeying him. 8:10-21 Silver, gold, and precious stones are not worthy to compare with the value of pursuing wisdom and his virtues. These virtues are such things as counsel, knowledge, understanding, discernment, and righteousness. They are likened to fruits, v19, that are produced by wisdom within those who love him, v17. 8:1-21 This passage is read at Monday Vespers in the third week of Great Lent. Divine Wisdom and the Father. If I declare to you the things that happen daily, I will also remember to recount the things of old. The Lord created me in the beginning of his ways for his works, he established me in the beginning before time, before he made the earth, and before he made the abysses, before the going forth of the fountains of waters, before the mountains were created, and he begot me before all hills. The Lord made the fields and the uninhabited places and the inhabited heights under heaven. When he prepared heaven, I was present with him, and when he set apart his throne upon the winds. When he made strong the things above the clouds, and made sure the fountains under heaven, and made strong the foundations of the earth, I was working beside him, I was he in whom he rejoiced, daily and continually I was gladdened by his face. When he completed the world, he rejoiced, and he rejoiced in the sons of men. Now therefore, my son, hear me, blessed is the man who shall hearken to me and the man who shall guard my ways, who watches daily at my doors, who keeps watch at the doors of my entryways, for my issues are the issues of life, and grace is prepared from the Lord. But those who sin against me act ungodly toward their own souls, and those who hate me love death. Wisdom's invitation. Wisdom built her house, and she supported it with 7 pillars. She offered her sacrifices, she mixed her wine in a bowl and prepared her table. She sent her servants, inviting people to the bowl with a lofty proclamation, saying, "He who is without discernment, let him turn aside to me," and to those in need of discernment, she says, "Come, eat my bread and drink the wine I mixed for you, forsake lack of discernment, and you shall live, seek discernment so you may live, and keep straight your understanding with knowledge." Wisdom, let us attend. He who chastises evil men shall receive dishonor to himself, and he who reproves the ungodly man shall be blamed himself. Do not reprove evil men, so they may not hate you, reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give the opportunity to a wise man, and he will be wiser, instruct a righteous man, and he shall continue to receive it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the counsel of saints is understanding, for to know the law is characteristic of a good mind. For in this manner you will live a long time, and the years of your life shall be increased. My son, if you become wise in yourself, you shall also be wise toward your neighbor, but if you prove to be evil, you alone will go through troubles. He who supports himself with lies will shepherd winds and chase flying birds, for he abandoned the ways of his own vineyard and strayed from paths of his own farming, and he will pass through a waterless desert, a land assigned to drought, and he gathers barrenness with his hands. A woman in need of a morsel is without discernment and overbold, she has no sense of shame. She sits upon the doors of her own house, upon a seat openly in the streets, calling to those who pass by and who go straight along their paths, "He who is very lacking in discernment, let him turn aside to me, and he who is in need of discernment, I exhort, saying, grasp with pleasure the secret bread and the sweet water of theft." But he does not know that the inhabitants of the earth perish beside her, and he happens upon a snare of Hades. But hurry off, do not continue in that place, neither set your eye toward her, for so you shall pass through strange water and cross beyond a strange river, and keep away from strange water, and do not drink from a strange fountain, that you may live a long time and add years of life to yourself. Notes from the previous page. 8:22 Wisdom knows all things. 8:23 The Lord is the Father, and created in this statement means the Father established wisdom over his works, for the Father made all things through wisdom. Saint Athanasius the Great. Created as used here does not mean the Father made wisdom himself, for the next clause shows the Father established wisdom over his works in the beginning before time. Therefore, created is used in this verse as a synonym of established, for wisdom, who is the Word and Son of the Father, is not a creature. He is begotten from the Father before all time. Creed, see also v25. The beginning of his ways means two things. It means the Father made all things through wisdom, and it also refers to the incarnation, when the wisdom and word of the Father became flesh, see also John 1:14. The phrase for his works refers both to the works of creation and to those accomplished by Christ for our salvation, which are outlined in the Creed. In the beginning before time is the same as in the beginning was the Word in John 1:1. For the Father established wisdom before time. Therefore Christ, the wisdom and power of God, is not a creature. 1 Corinthians 1:24. 8:24-25 The word before occurs 5 times in these verses, and it emphasizes that wisdom himself exists outside creation. The words begot me show the relation of wisdom to the Father. Wisdom is the Son of the Father, begotten from him before and outside all time and ages, see also Creed. 8:26-28 Wisdom, the Son of the Father, was present, v27, with the Father when he made the world, Therefore, the Son exists with the Father outside creation. The Father is not a creature, therefore, neither is his Son. 8:29-30 The Son also created the world, for he was working beside the Father. The Father is the Creator, and the Son is the Creator. How so? Because the working is one. Working. They are two distinct persons, but the work of creation is one work. Although he is not mentioned here by name, the Holy Spirit was also present and working, for he, too, is the Creator, see Genesis 1:2. Three distinct persons created the world with one working. This one working is emphasized in the statement, the Father made the world through the Son in the Spirit. Therefore the Holy Trinity, our one God, made the world with one working, and they rejoice in one another, v. 30. 8:22-30 This passage is read on March 25, the feast of the Annunciation of the Theotokos. 8:31 When the Father completed creation, he rejoiced in it. He also rejoices in the sons of men. Those who respond to the Father's joy, in turn, rejoice in him. 8:32-33 The conclusion to 8:1:31 is this: heed the wisdom of the Father, and the man who does so is blessed. Such a man will keep his eyes on him at all times. 8:34 The true issues of life center in Christ, the wisdom of the Father. Those who center their life in these issues will experience the grace of the Father, the Lord. 8:35 People who sin against wisdom act contrary to their own God-given nature, souls. For human nature is good in itself, but those who behave contrary to their nature act ungodly toward their own souls. Those who do so love death. 9:1 Wisdom is Christ, and he built his house. This house is first the Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, for he was conceived in her womb. Secondly, his house is the Church. Hebrews 3:1, 6. This house is built on Christ, on the Mother of God, and on the apostles and prophets. Christ himself is the chief cornerstone, Ephesians 2:19, 22. The seven pillars of the Church is the Holy Spirit, who is called the seven spirits of God, Revelations 3:1. These seven spirits are the graces of the Holy Spirit that rested on Christ. Summarized in is 11:2, 3, wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, knowledge, godliness, and the fear of God. These are the seven pillars by which the Church is supported through Christ. 9:2 Christ shed his precious blood, sacrifices, and offers it in the wine of the Eucharist. At the holy altar, table. 9:3 Christ sends his servants to invite people to Christ and his Eucharist. 9:4 Christ, the wisdom of the Father, gives those who turn aside to him the crown of the virtues, which is discernment. 9:5-6 Wisdom invites mankind to eat my bread, which is his body, and drink the wine, which is his blood in the Holy Eucharist. Those who accept his invitation and forsake their vices or sinful passions, lack of discernment, will find life in his Eucharist, see also John 6. Those who seek wisdom's discernment, the crown of the virtues, will keep straight their understanding with knowledge. 9:7-24 Wisdom's discernment, seen in the Council of Saints, v. 10, manifests itself in holy behavior, seen in a wise and righteous man, verses 8, 9. 8:32-35 This passage is read at Tuesday Vespers in the third week of Great Lent. 9:1-11 This passage is read at the feasts of the Mother of God, for the consecration of a church, and at the feast of Mid-Pentecost. The wisdom of Solomon. A wise son makes his father glad, but a son without discernment is a grief to his mother. Treasures do not benefit lawless men, but righteousness delivers from death. The Lord will not let the soul of the righteous man starve, but he overthrows the life of the ungodly. Poverty humbles a man, but the hands of courageous men enrich others. A son who is instructed will be wise, and he will use a man without discernment as a servant. A son with understanding is kept safe from the heat, but a lawless son is blasted by the wind at harvest time. The blessing of the Lord is upon the head of a righteous man, but untimely grief will cover the mouth of the ungodly. The remembrance of the righteous is with eulogies, but the name of an ungodly man is extinguished. The wise man in heart will receive the commandments, but the man unguarded in speech will be overthrown in his perverseness. He who walks in sincerity walks confidently, but he who perverts his ways will be known. He who winks his eyes deceitfully gathers grief for men, but he who reproves boldly is a peacemaker. A fountain of life is in the hand of a righteous man, but the mouth of an ungodly man will hide destruction. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all who are not lovers of strife. He who brings forth wisdom from his lips beats a heartless man with a rod. The wise will hide perception, but the mouth of a rash man approaches destruction. The acquisition of riches is a fortified city, but poverty is the destruction of the ungodly. The works of the righteous produce life, but the fruits of the ungodly produce sins. Instruction guards righteous ways of life, but instruction incapable of criticism goes astray. Righteous lips cover hatred, but those who bring forth abuse are very lacking in discernment. You will not escape sin by a multitude of words, but you of discreet lips will be forbearing. The tongue of a righteous man is silver tried in the fire, but the heart of an ungodly man shall fail. The lips of righteous men understand lofty things, but men without discernment die in want. The blessing of the Lord is upon the head of a righteous man, it enriches him, and grief of heart will not be added to it. A man without discernment does evil things with laughter, but wisdom gives birth to discernment in a man. The ungodly man is carried about in destruction, but the desire of the righteous man is acceptable. The ungodly man is destroyed by the passing storm, but the righteous man turns aside and shall be saved forever. As an unripe grape is harmful to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is a lawless woman to the men who use her. The fear of the Lord increases days, but the years of the ungodly will be shortened. Gladness continues for the righteous, but the hope of the ungodly perishes. The fear of the Lord is the stronghold of a holy man, but destruction is for those who work evil. A righteous man will never fail, but the ungodly shall not inhabit the earth. The mouth of a righteous man distills wisdom, but the tongue of an unrighteous man utterly destroys. The lips of righteous men distill grace, but the mouth of the ungodly is perverse. Notes from the previous page. 925 Holy behavior is conducive to long life. 9:1-25 This chapter may be outlined as follows: Introduction, v1, Wisdom's invitation to mankind, verses 2-6, Wisdom's discernment in those who accept his invitation, verses 7-24. And conclusion, v25. 10:1 A wise son knows wisdom and his virtues. But a son without discernment is a grief, for he lives in vice. 10:2 Lawless rich men do not benefit from their wealth, for their vices lead them to death and Hades. But righteousness, one of the general virtues of wisdom, delivers one from such an end. 10:3 Wisdom, who is the Lord, will not let the soul of the righteous man starve, for he will enrich it with the fruits of righteousness. But he overthrows the life of the ungodly, because he allows them to eat the fruits of their own vices. 10:4 The Lord allows a man's vices to humble his soul. Perhaps he will turn from them. But courage is one of the general virtues begotten by wisdom. Courageous people enrich others in virtue. 9:12-18 This passage is read during Wednesday Vespers in the third week of Great Lent. 10:1-22 This passage is read during Thursday Vespers in the third week of Great Lent. 10:6 Understanding is the crown of the virtues, and when the heat of temptations and trials comes at this son, he is kept safe. But a son without the fruits of the virtues. Harvest time, is dried up by the wind of his vices, lawless. 10:9 A wise man is a virtuous man, and he is virtuous because he receives the commandments of wisdom. Self-control is one of the general virtues. A wise man is able to control his tongue through wisdom, see also Jam 3. But an unwise man cannot control his tongue, unguarded in speech, which overthrows him in his perverseness. 10:13 The general virtues of wisdom produce love, but their absence causes men to become hateful and lovers of strife. 10:15 Perception is one of the general virtues. With perception coupled with self-control, a man is able to keep his mouth under check. But the mouth of a rash man is unchecked, and therefore approaches destruction. 10:20 Discreet lips reveal the presence of self-control and the general virtues. Forbearance is a fruit of these virtues. 10:24 Evil things with laughter are the fruits of men without discernment. But wisdom, who is Christ, gives birth to discernment in a man. The fruits of righteousness. Deceitful scales are an abomination before the Lord, but a righteous weight is acceptable to him. Wherever arrogance enters, there also is dishonor, but the mouth of the humble meditates on wisdom. When a righteous man dies, he leaves regret, but the destruction of the ungodly is immediate and brings joy. Righteousness cuts straight and blameless paths, but ungodliness embraces wrongdoing. The righteousness of upright men delivers them, but lawless men are taken to their destruction. When a righteous man dies, his hope does not perish, but the boast of the ungodly perishes. A righteous man escapes from a snare, but the ungodly man is handed over in his place. There is a snare for citizens in the mouth of the ungodly, but the perception of the righteous is prosperous. A city stays upright in the good things of the righteous, but it is razed to the ground by the mouths of the ungodly. A man in need of discernment treats citizens with contempt, but a man of discernment keeps quiet. A double-tongued man reveals deliberations heard in council, but a man faithful in spirit conceals matters. Those for whom there is no leadership fall like leaves, but there is salvation in much counsel. A wicked man does evil whenever he meets a righteous man, and he hates the sound of stability. A thankful woman raises up glory to her husband, but a throne of dishonor is a woman who hates righteousness. Lazy men are in need of wealth, but courageous men support themselves with wealth. A merciful man does good to his soul, but an unmerciful man utterly destroys his body. An ungodly man does unrighteous works, but the seed of the righteous is a reward of truth. A righteous son is begotten unto life, but the persecution of an ungodly man is unto death. Perverse ways are an abomination to the Lord, but all who are blameless in their ways are acceptable to him. He who joins hands with the unrighteous will not go unpunished, but he who sows righteousness will receive a faithful reward. Like a ring in the nose of a wild swine, so is beauty to an evil-minded woman. Every desire of the righteous is good, but the hope of the ungodly is destruction. There are those who sow their own things and produce more things, and there are those who gather but have less. Every sincere soul is blessed, but an angry man is not graceful. May the one who hoards grain leave it to the nations, but may blessing be upon the head of the one who shares it. He who plans good things seeks good grace, but he who seeks evil, it will capture him. He who trusts in riches, this man will fall, but he who helps the righteous, this man will rise. He who does not deal graciously with his own house will inherit the wind, and a man without discernment will be servant to one with discernment. A tree of life springs up from the fruit of righteousness, but the souls of the lawless will be taken away before their time. If the righteous man is scarcely saved, then where shall an ungodly man and a sinner appear? The riches of righteousness. He who loves instruction loves perception, but he who hates correction is without discernment. He who finds grace from the Lord becomes better, but a lawless man will be passed over in silence. A man will not prosper by lawlessness, but the roots of righteous men will not be pulled out. A courageous wife is a crown to her husband, but as a worm in a tree, so an evil-doing wife destroys her husband. The thoughts of the righteous are judgments, but the ungodly devise deceits. The words of the ungodly are deceitful, but the mouth of the upright shall deliver them. If he does not turn, an ungodly man is destroyed, but the houses of the righteous remain. The mouth of a man of understanding is praised by a man, but the slothful of heart are treated with contempt. It is better for a man in dishonor to survey himself than for him to surround himself with honor while in need of bread. A righteous man has compassion on the lives of his cattle, but the affections of the ungodly are without mercy. He who works his own land will be satisfied with bread, but those who pursue vain things are in need of discernment. He who is gladdened by wines in passing his time shall leave dishonor in his own strongholds. The desires of the ungodly are evil, but the roots of the godly are in strongholds. By the sin of his lips a sinner falls into snares, but a righteous man escapes from them. He whose looks are gentle will show mercy, but he who contends in the gates will afflict souls. By the fruits of his mouth, the soul of a man will be filled with good things, and the recompense of his lips will be given to him. The ways of undiscerning men are right in their own eyes, but a wise man hearkens to counsels. A man without discernment immediately proclaims his wrath, but an astute man hides his own dishonor. A righteous man declares his honesty openly, but the witness of the unrighteous is deceitful. There are those who wound with the sword as they speak, but the tongues of the wise heal. Truthful lips establish a testimony, but a hasty witness has an unrighteous tongue. There is deceit in the heart of a man who devises evil things, but those who counsel peace shall be glad. Nothing unrighteous will ever be pleasing to the righteous, but the ungodly will be filled with evil things. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but he who shows faithfulness is acceptable to him. A man of understanding is a throne of perception, but the heart of the undiscerning will meet with curses. The hand of the chosen shall prevail easily, but the deceitful shall be for captivity. A fearful word troubles the heart of a righteous man, but a good message makes him glad. A righteous arbiter shall be his own friend, but the decisions of the ungodly are unreasonable. Evil things shall pursue sinners, and the way of the ungodly will lead them astray. A deceitful man will not gain his prey, but a pure man is a precious possession. In the ways of righteousness there is life, but the ways of remembering wrongs are unto death. Notes from the previous page. 1029. A virtuous man lives in the gladness of hope, but the hope of a man of vice perishes. 1030. A holy man is one who knows wisdom and his virtues. To such a man, the fear of the Lord is a stronghold. 11:2 Humble people meditate on wisdom and his teachings concerning virtue. But arrogant people pay no attention to wisdom, and this leads them to dishonor before him. 11:4 Righteousness, one of the general virtues, cuts a straight path through this fallen world. Those who travel this path are blameless, but ungodliness is characterized by a crooked path. 11:6 A righteous life produces hope in a man, for his hope is in the world to come. But the ungodly boast only in this life, which is perishing. 11:8 The ungodly do not exercise self-control over their mouth, for they know nothing of the general virtues of wisdom. But those who know and love wisdom partake of his general virtues, two of which are perception and righteousness. Such people benefit others. 11:10 A man with discernment, the crown of the virtues, has his mouth under control, for he knows how to be quiet. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:19, 23. But the mouth of a man in need of discernment is out of control and treats others with contempt. 11:15 Lazy people do not pursue wisdom and his spiritual riches. But courage is one of the general virtues, and courageous people support themselves with these virtues. 1032-11:10 This passage is read at Friday Vespers in the third week of Great Lent. 11:17 Righteousness is one of the general virtues of wisdom. These virtues beget all the other virtues, called seed. Wisdom endowed human nature with this seed, which grows, develops, and bears good fruit in those who obey him. 11:22 Both good and evil desires are motivated by hope for fulfillment. The righteous hope for fulfillment in the kingdom of God, therefore, every desire is energized by this hope. But the desire of the ungodly is energized by hoping in this fallen world. Since this world is perishing, its hopes perish with it. 11:24 Every sincere soul is blessed because sincerity is a fruit of self-control, one of the general virtues of wisdom. But an angry soul is out of control, and therefore is not graceful. 11:29 The fruit of righteousness and the tree of life is Christ. He alone, as man, fulfilled all righteousness. But the souls of the unrighteous meet an untimely expulsion from the presence of God. Saint Hippolytus. 11:30 The Apostle Peter quotes this verse in 1 Peter 4:18. The righteous man suffers according to the will of God, but this verse encourages him constantly to commit his soul to God and his faithfulness. For the persecutor will receive his recompense in due time. 12:1 Wisdom's instruction incorporates several aspects, one of which is correction. Perception is the crown of the virtues, and a perceptive man loves to be corrected. But a man without discernment hates correction. 12:2 No one can live a virtuous life without the grace of God. As Wisdom said, without me you can do nothing, John 15:5. Thus he who finds the Lord's grace and lives by it becomes better, that is, bears the fruits of virtue. But his grace passes by the lawless man in silence, the godly and the ungodly. An astute son is obedient to his father, but a disobedient son is for destruction. A good man eats from the fruits of righteousness, but the souls of the lawless will destroy themselves before their time. He who guards his mouth keeps his own soul, but he who is hasty with his lips will dismay himself. Every idle man has desire, but the hands of the courageous are diligent. A righteous man hates an unrighteous word, but an ungodly man is ashamed and will not have confidence. Righteousness guards the simple, but sin makes the ungodly worthless. There are those with nothing who make themselves rich, and there are those, though very rich, who humble themselves. The ransom of a man's soul is his own wealth, but the poor man does not withstand a threat. Light is with the righteous continually, but the light of the ungodly is extinguished. Deceitful souls are led astray in sins, but the righteous have compassion and are merciful. An evil man does evil things with arrogance, but those who know themselves are wise. Property hastily gained with lawlessness becomes diminished, but he who gathers for himself with godliness will be increased. A righteous man has compassion and lends. A man who begins to give aid heartily is better than he who only promises and leads another to hope. A good desire is a tree of life. He who despises a matter will be despised by it, but he who fears the commandment, this man is in good health. To a deceitful son there shall be nothing good, but for a wise servant, his deeds shall be prosperous, and his way shall be led aright. The law of the wise is a fountain of life, but the man without understanding will die by a snare. A good understanding gives grace, and to know the law is to be of a good mind, but the ways of scorners are destructive. Every astute man acts with knowledge, but the man without discernment spreads out his own evil. A rash king falls into evil things, but a faithful messenger rescues him. Instruction removes poverty and dishonor, and he who gives heed to rebukes will be glorified. The desires of the godly gladden the soul, but the works of the ungodly are far from knowledge. He who walks with the wise shall be wise, but he who walks with those without discernment will be known. Evil things shall pursue sinners, but good things will overtake the righteous. A good man will inherit sons of sons, but the wealth of the ungodly will be stored up for the righteous. The righteous shall live in wealth many years, but the unrighteous will be destroyed suddenly. He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him instructs him with care. A righteous man eats and satisfies his soul, but the souls of the ungodly are in want. Notes from the previous page. 12:4 A courageous wife is one who possesses the general virtues, therefore, she is a crown to her husband. But a wife without these virtues is like a worm in a tree, for her evil-doing gradually destroys him. 12:5 Upright judgment is the crown of the virtues, and, together with righteousness, is one of the general virtues. But the judgments of the ungodly are deceitful. 12:8 Understanding is the crown of the virtues, and coupled with righteousness, courage, and self-control, it helps one to use his mouth in a praiseworthy manner. But a slothful man does not know these virtues. His mouth is undisciplined, thus he brings contempt upon himself. 12:10 Compassion is a fruit of righteousness. Thus in man's dominion over every living thing, Genesis 1:28, he is to express this dominion in compassion. But the ungodly evidence no such affections, for they know nothing of mercy, even toward animals. 12:13 The desires of the ungodly are not rooted in the general virtues of wisdom. Therefore, their desires pursue the sinful passions. But the roots of the godly are in the strongholds of these virtues. 12:15 Gentleness is a fruit of the general virtues, and it manifests itself even in one's eyes. But contention is a fruit of vice, which causes others to suffer. 12:18 Astuteness is the crown of the virtues, see also 14:25, and with it, together with righteousness, courage, and self-control, a man keeps his anger under control. But a man without this crown, without discernment, and these other virtues proclaims his wrath through his mouth. 12:19 Honesty is a fruit of righteousness and the other general virtues. But an unrighteous man lives in deceit. 12:20 The tongues of the wise heal others, because they possess the general virtues of wisdom. But the tongues of the unwise are like swords that wound as they speak. 12:8-22 This passage is read during Tuesday Vespers in the 4th week of Great Lent. 12:22 Peace is a fruit of the general virtues, for people who possess them are peacemakers. But a man with a deceitful heart knows nothing of this. 12:25 Understanding and perception are two aspects of the crown of the virtues. But undiscerning people bring curses on themselves. 12:31 The fruit of righteousness is life-giving to others, for a righteous man does not remember wrongs done to him. But the ways of remembering wrongs are death-giving to others, for these ways destroy personal relationships. 13:1 Astuteness is the crown of the wise, see also 14:25. Obedience is a fruit of this wisdom, but disobedience evidences a lack of such wisdom. Obedience is the right use of the will, according to God and human nature. But disobedience is a use of the will contrary to God and nature. For human nature is good in itself, Genesis 1:31, and obedience to God is in harmony with it. 13:2 Man's soul is good by nature, and the fruits of righteousness manifest themselves naturally from the soul. But lawlessness is willful and prevents these natural fruits from showing themselves. Unless this man corrects himself, he will destroy his own good nature. 13:3 He who guards or disciplines his own mouth allows the natural virtues of the soul to manifest themselves. But lack of this discipline dismays the soul, because these virtues are frustrated. 13:4 Courage is one of the general virtues of wisdom. Courage keeps a man from being idle in his desire for the natural virtues to show themselves. 13:8 The wealth of the soul is the virtues with which wisdom endows it. As these virtues manifest themselves through wisdom, they ransom the soul. But this poor man is one who by his vices prevents his virtues from showing themselves. Thus, he cannot withstand the threat of these vices. 12:24-31 This passage is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 4th week of Great Lent. Righteousness at home. Wise women build houses, but those without discernment destroy them with their hands. He who walks uprightly fears the Lord, but he who is crooked in his ways will be dishonored. From the mouth of a man without discernment comes a rod of arrogance, but the lips of wise men guard themselves. Where there are no oxen, the stalls are clean, but where there are abundant crops, the strength of an ox is evident. A faithful witness does not lie, but an unrighteous witness kindles lies. You will seek wisdom in the company of evil men, and you will not find it, but perception is easily found with the discerning. All things are contrary to a man without discernment, but the weapons of perception are wise lips. The wisdom of astute men will know their ways, but the folly of men without discernment is in their deceit. The houses of the lawless are due for purification, but the houses of the righteous are acceptable. If the heart of a man is controlled by feelings, his soul is sorrowful, but when he rejoices, it is not mingled with arrogance. The houses of the ungodly will be destroyed, but the tents of the upright shall stand. There is a road that seems to be right with men, but the ends of it reach into the depths of Hades. Sorrow does not mingle with gladness, but in the end, this joy turns to sorrow. A bold-hearted man will be filled with his own ways, but a good man with all his thoughts. A simple man believes in every word, but an astute man comes to repentance. A wise man fears and turns away from evil, but a man without discernment persuades himself to mingle with a lawless man. A quick-tempered man acts with recklessness, but a man with discernment bears many things. Men without discernment will share in evil, but the astute will take hold of perception. Evil men will slip and fall in the presence of good men, and the ungodly shall serve at the gate of the righteous. Friends will hate poor friends, but the friends of the rich are many. He who dishonors the poor sins, but he who has mercy on the poor is very blessed. Deceivers devise evil things, but good men devise mercy and truth. Devisers of evil things do not understand mercy and faithfulness, but mercies and faithfulness are with devisers of good things. To every one who is careful there is an abundance, but he who is pleasure-taking and slothful shall be in want. The crown of the wise is astuteness, but the pastime of the undiscerning is evil. A faithful witness will rescue a soul from evil men, but a deceitful man kindles lies. In the fear of the Lord there is hope of strength, and to his children there remains support. The command of the Lord is a fountain of life, for it causes one to turn from the snare of death. The glory of a king is in a large nation, but the destruction of a ruler is in a lack of people. A long-suffering man is strong in discernment, but the faint-hearted man is strongly without discernment. A man with a gentle spirit is a healer of the heart, but a sensual heart is the moth of the bones. He who oppresses the poor provokes his Maker, but he who honors him has mercy upon a poor man. In his evil an ungodly man will be rejected, but a righteous man has confidence in his own holiness. There is wisdom in the good heart of a man, but wisdom is unknown in the heart of those without discernment. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sins diminish tribes. A wise servant is acceptable to a king, and by his own versatility he removes dishonor. Notes from the previous page. 13:10 The deceptions of sin lead the soul astray in vice. But the righteous correct and discipline themselves, and their souls manifest the natural fruits of righteousness, such as compassion and mercy. 13:11 An evil man is not evil by nature. For if he were, he could not correct and discipline himself. He does evil things by the wrong use of his free will, which is often energized by arrogance, one of the worst of the vices. Those who know themselves know they are good by nature, and they will use this God-given wisdom to remove the deceptions of sin. 13:15 A deceitful son is one who lives in the deceptions of sinful vice. The good in his nature cannot manifest itself in goodness, nothing good. But a son is also a servant. And if he is wise, he will remove these deceptions and obey wisdom, and live according to nature. In this way wisdom will prosper his deeds. 1316 The law of the wise is to live in harmony with wisdom and human nature. But a man without understanding will die in this condition through the snares and deceptions of vice, unless he corrects and disciplines himself. 1317 A good understanding is the crown of the virtues, and it manifests itself in gracious behavior toward others. Such understanding evidences a good mind and a knowledge of wisdom's law. But scorners of wisdom behave in destructive ways toward others. 1318 Astuteness is the crown of the wise, see also 1425, and an astute man acts with knowledge. But a man without this crown, without discernment, spreads his evil, because he is deceived by sin. 1320 Instruction by wisdom removes the poverty and dishonor of a man caused by the deceptions of his own sin. For by this instruction, a man learns to correct and discipline himself with regard to these deceptions. And he who heeds wisdom's rebukes will be glorified by him. 1323 A sinner is sinful not by nature, but by the wrong use of his will. Evil things will overtake this wrong use. But good things overtake the righteous, because they obey wisdom, and with his help live according to their good nature. 13:22-14:6 This passage is read during Thursday Vespers in the fourth week of Great Lent. 13:26 The rod is the gentle rod of rebuke, and the father who does not use it hates his own son. But he who loves his son educates him carefully in his natural and God-given virtues. 14:1 Wise women build up their families when they possess the general virtues of wisdom, discernment, righteousness, courage, and self-control. But those without discernment destroy them. 14:3 A man without discernment is one who does not possess the general virtues of wisdom. Such a man is energized by arrogance, thus he beats people with the harsh rod of his mouth. But the lips of wise men are self-controlled, because they possess the general virtues of wisdom. 14:6 Evil men are evil not by nature but by choice. They have chosen not to know wisdom and his instruction. Therefore, wisdom cannot be found among them. But perception and discernment are two aspects of the crown of the wise, for they choose to know wisdom and his instruction. 14:7 Everything pertaining to wisdom and his instruction is contrary to a man without discernment. But perception, the crown of the virtues, is a good weapon on the lips of the wise. 14:8 Astute men are wise men who know their ways because they are not deceived by vice. But unwise men are those without the crown of discernment who therefore live in the folly of their own deceptions. 14:12 People deceived by the vices believe they are on the right road of life. But in truth, their road leads to the depths of Hades. 14:14 A bold-hearted man in this case is bold in his vices, filled with his own ways. A good man is good both in nature and in choice, and his thinking is sound. 14:15 A simple man is easily deceived, believes in every word, but an astute man has the discernment to remove the deceptions of sin through repentance. 14:15-26 This passage is read during Friday Vespers in the fourth week of Great Lent. Righteous responses. Wrath destroys 7 men of discernment, but a humble answer turns away anger, and a grievous word stirs up wrath. The tongue of the wise understands good things, but the mouth of those without discernment proclaims evil things. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, they keep watch over both the evil and the good. The healing of the tongue is a tree of life, and the one who guards it will be filled with the Spirit. A son without discernment treats the instruction of his father with contempt, but the one who guards his commandments is more astute. In abundant righteousness there is much strength, but the ungodly shall utterly perish from the earth. In the houses of the righteous there is much strength, but the fruits of the ungodly shall perish. The lips of the wise are bound by perception, but the hearts of those without discernment are not safe. The sacrifices of the ungodly are an abomination to the Lord, but the prayers of the upright are acceptable with him. The ways of the ungodly are an abomination to the Lord, but he loves those who pursue righteousness. The instruction of the simple is known by those who pass by, but those who hate reproofs will die shamefully. Hades and destruction are manifest before the Lord, how can the hearts of men not be also? An uninstructed man will not love those who reprove him, and he will not keep company with the wise. When one's heart is glad, his face is cheerful, but when it is in grief, his face is sad. The upright heart seeks perception, but the mouth of the uninstructed will know evil things. The eyes of evil men are waiting for evil things all the time, but good men are at rest continually. Better is a small portion with the fear of the Lord than great treasures with lack of fear. Better is a dinner of herbs with friendship and grace than a fat calf with hostility. An angry man stirs up contention, but a long-suffering man even calms the rising quarrel. A long-suffering man will extinguish condemnations, but the ungodly man stirs up more. The ways of idle men are strewn with thorny plants, but the thorny plants of the courageous are worn smooth. A wise son gladdens a father, but a son without discernment treats his mother with contempt. The paths of one without understanding are in need of discernment, but a man with discernment walks uprightly. Those not honoring counsels defer their deliberations, but counsel remains in the hearts of those who resolve to do it. The evil man will not obey counsel, nor will he speak anything appropriate, even something for the common good. The thoughts of a wise man are his ways of life, that he might turn aside and be saved from Hades. The Lord will destroy the houses of the arrogant, but he will strengthen the boundary of a widow. The thinking of the unrighteous man is an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the holy are sacred. He who receives bribes utterly destroys himself, but he who hates the receiving of bribes saves himself. Sins are cleansed by almsgiving and faithfulness, and by the fear of the Lord every one turns aside from evil. The hearts of the righteous care about faithfulness, but the mouth of the ungodly answers evil things. The ways of righteous men are acceptable before the Lord, and through them even enemies become friends. God is far from the ungodly, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. Better is a small yield with the righteous than abundant fruits with the unrighteous. Let the heart of a man think righteous things that he may make his steps straight under God. The eye that beholds good things gladdens the heart, but a good report enriches the bones. He who rejects instruction hates himself, but he who gives heed to reproofs loves his soul. The fear of God is instruction and wisdom, and the beginning of glory will respond to it. Notes from the previous page. 1417 A quick-tempered man behaves in a reckless manner because he is taken with anger. But a man with discernment, the crown of the virtues, is patient and thus can handle what comes his way. 1418 Men without discernment share in evil because they choose to do so. But astute men take hold of perception, the crown of the wise, and thus choose the good. 1422 Deceivers are self-deceived by their vices, and thus devise evil things by choice. But good men are good both by nature and choice, and thus bring forth mercy and truth. 1425 The crown of the wise is astuteness, one of the general virtues of wisdom. In their astuteness, by the grace of wisdom, the wise choose goodness. But the undiscerning know neither wisdom nor his virtues, thus they spend their time choosing vices. 1428 The Lord's commandments are a fountain of life, because he is the life of those who obey him. Those who know this life are able to remove from themselves the deceptions of sin, the snare of death. 1430 Long-suffering is a fruit of discernment and the general virtues, but cowards, the faint-hearted, are devoid of these virtues. 1431 A gentle spirit is a fruit of the general virtues, and such a man heals his own heart. But a sensual heart is the moth of the bones, because this heart is overcome with the cares of the fallen world. 1434 A good heart is good both by nature and choice. Such a man knows wisdom and his virtues. but he and his virtues are unknown in the heart of those without discernment. 1428-15:4 This passage is read during Monday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. 15:1 Even men of discernment lose their discernment if they respond in kind to the anger of others. For this response clouds their ability to understand a matter. But a humble answer manifests a calm spirit and allows truth to penetrate the situation. 15:3 The eyes of the Lord are in every place, because he fills all things. He observes both the evil and the good. The evil are good by nature but evil by choice, and he sees these choices. The good are good by nature and by choice, and he also sees this. 15:4 The Spirit of wisdom is the Holy Spirit. He is everywhere present and fills all things. Those who partake of his fullness use their tongues to heal others, and are a tree of life to them. 15:8 Perception is the crown of the wise, and it helps them to control the use of their lips. But the hearts of those without discernment are not safe to others, because their mouths are out of control. 15:13 An uninstructed man does not know wisdom and his instruction, thus, he will not love those who reprove him. Nor will he keep company with wise people, because he chooses to live in the deceptions of his own sins. 15:15 An upright heart is one that knows wisdom and his virtues. Thus, he chooses to seek these virtues, such as perception, one of the general virtues. But the uninstructed are those who live in the deceptions of their own vices, know evil things. 15:8-21 This passage is read during Tuesday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. Humility, discernment, and righteousness. All the works of the humble are evident before the Lord, but the ungodly will be destroyed in the evil day. Every high-hearted man is unclean before the Lord, and he who joins hands with the unrighteous will not go unpunished. The beginning of a good way is to do righteous things, and this is more acceptable to God than to offer sacrifices. He who seeks the Lord will find knowledge with righteousness, and those who seek him rightly will find peace. All the works of the Lord are with righteousness, but the ungodly man is kept for an evil day. There is an oracle on the lips of a king, and his mouth does not err in judgment. The weight of a scale is righteousness before the Lord, for his works are righteous standards. He who does evil things is an abomination to a king, for the throne of a ruler is prepared with righteousness. Righteous lips are acceptable to a king, and he loves upright words. The wrath of a king is a messenger of death, but a wise man will appease him. The son of a king is in the light of life, and those acceptable to him are as a cloud of the latter rain. The abodes of wisdom are more to be chosen than gold, and the abodes of discernment are more to be chosen than silver. The paths of life turn away from evil, and the ways of righteousness are length of life. Omega He who receives instruction shall be in good things, and he who heeds rebukes shall become wise. He who guards his own ways shall keep his own soul, and he who loves his life shall use his mouth sparingly. Arrogance goes before destruction and folly before a fall. A gentle mind with humility is better than he who divides spoils with the arrogant. A man wise in his deeds is a discoverer of good things, but he who trusts in God is the most blessed. Men call the wise and understanding worthless, but those pleasing in speech will increase in understanding. Understanding is a fountain of life to those who possess it, but the instruction of those without discernment is evil. The heart of a wise man shall understand the things from his own mouth, and he shall carry knowledge upon his lips. Good words are a honeycomb, and their sweetness is a healing of the soul. There are ways that seem right to a man, however, their ends look to the depths of Hades. A man labors diligently for himself and expels destruction from himself, however, a perverse man carries destruction on his lips. A man without discernment digs up evil things for himself and stores up fire on his own lips. A perverse man spreads evil things, and a torch of deceit kindles evils and separates friends. A lawless man makes a trial of friends and leads them in ways not good. A man sets his eyes to calculate perverse things and determines every evil thing with his lips, This man is a furnace of wickedness. Old age is a crown of dignity, but it is found in the ways of righteousness. A patient man is better than a strong man, and he who controls his temper is better than he who captures a city. All evil things come into the bosoms of the unrighteous, but all righteous things come from the Lord. Notes from the previous page. 1519 In itself, anger is a blameless passion, useful in turning one away from vice. But if this passion is out of control, it turns one to contention. Long-suffering, however, is a fruit of the general virtues, and uses anger to turn away from this vice. Long-suffering calms rising quarrels. 1521 Idle men are cowards, because they have no courage to deal with their problems. Thorny plants. But courage is one of the general virtues, and courageous men confront their thorny issues and smooth them out. 15:22-25 This passage, coupled with 16:1-9, is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. 15:25 Evil men are good by nature but evil by choice. They refuse to obey counsel, because it contradicts their choices. They especially refuse to obey any counsel for the common good of others. 15:30 Almsgiving and faithfulness are fruits of the general virtues of wisdom. These fruits cleanse the sins of love of money and unbelief. These fruits are also evidence of fear of the Lord, by which people turn aside from choosing vice, evil. 15:33 God is far from the ungodly, not in place but in will. The will of God and the will of the ungodly are far apart. But he hears the prayers of the righteous because their will and his will are in harmony. 15:37 He who rejects wisdom's instruction refuses to correct the sins that deceive him. Such a man hates his good soul and the virtues wisdom implanted within it. But he who gives heed to wisdom's reproofs loves his soul, because he removes the deceptions of sin that prevent his soul from growing in the God-implanted virtues. 15:22-25 This passage, coupled with 16:1-9, is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. 15:38 A man who fears God receives wisdom's correction and instruction in the virtues. Such a man begins and continues to understand the glory of God. 16:1 Salvation begins and ends with humility, St. John Chrysostom. Humility is a fruit of the general virtues of wisdom, and it manifests itself in works. The Lord sees these works and is pleased. But people are ungodly because they lack humility, thus their works are unacceptable to the Lord. The evil day indicates the destructive road they are traveling in life. 16:1-9 This passage, coupled with 15:22-25, is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. 16:3 Righteousness is one of the general virtues of wisdom. These virtues launch one on the good road to travel throughout life. This road is characterized by the good fruits of righteousness, one of which is humility, the beginning of a good way. Sacrifices are acceptable, but the virtues of wisdom are more acceptable to God. 16:4 The Lord is the author of the virtues, knowledge with righteousness. Man cannot have the Lord without the virtues, nor can he have the virtues without the Lord. Therefore, when man seeks the Lord and finds him, he will also find the virtues of which he is the author. Those who seek the Lord with this in mind, rightly, will also find the peace he authors. 16:7 Righteousness is one of the general virtues wisdom begets in those who know and love him. This virtue is the standard, weight of a scale, by which the Lord does his works. Thus, his righteousness is also the standard by which man does works acceptable to him. 16:1-9 This passage, coupled with 15:22-25, is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. 1612 Man lives in one or the other of two abodes. These abodes are mutually exclusive. Thus man has a choice. He may choose wisdom, who is Christ, or he may choose gold. He may love Christ, or he may love money, but he cannot love and live in both abodes simultaneously. 1614 Wisdom's instruction incorporates several aspects: teaching, correction, discipline, reproof, learning, education, and training. Thus, he who receives this instruction shall be in good things. And he rebukes those who love him, for this is part of his instruction. These rebukes help us to remove the deceptions of sin, for these deceptions stand in the way of one's growth and development in the virtues of wisdom. 16:1-9 This passage, coupled with 15:22-25, is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. 16:13-17:8 This passage is read during Thursday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. Family and friends. Better is a morsel with enjoyment in peace than a house full of many good things and unrighteous sacrifices with quarreling. A servant with discernment shall rule over masters without discernment, and will divide portions among brethren. As silver and gold are tested in a furnace, so are chosen hearts before the Lord. An evil man heeds the tongue of the lawless, but a righteous man pays no attention to false lips. He who laughs at the poor provokes the one who made him, and he who rejoices in destruction will not be unpunished, but he who has compassion will be shown mercy. The crown of old men is children of children, and the boasting of children is their fathers. The entire world of goods belongs to the faithful, but to the faithless, not even a penny. Faithful lips will not adapt to a man without discernment, nor lying lips to a righteous man. Instruction awards benefits to those using it, and wherever it turns, it prospers them. He who hides wrongdoing seeks love, but he who hates to cover them will separate friends and close relatives. A threat breaks the heart of a man with discernment, but a man without discernment, though flogged, has no perception. Every evil man stirs up controversy, but the Lord will send him a merciless messenger. Care will befall a thoughtful man, but men without discernment devise evil things. He who repays evil for good, evil will not be removed from his house. The foundation of righteousness gives authority to words, but discord and quarreling precede poverty. He who judges the unrighteous as righteous, and the righteous as unrighteous, he is unclean and abominable before God. Why do goods belong to a man without discernment? For a heartless man is unable to gain wisdom. He who makes his own house lofty seeks destruction, and the one who turns away from learning will fall into evils. Let a friend be with you on every occasion, and let brethren be useful in necessities, for they are begotten for this reason. A man without discernment applauds and rejoices over himself, as also the one who gives himself as surety for his friend. He who loves sin rejoices in quarrels, and the hard-hearted man does not assemble with good men. A changeable man will fall into evils with his tongue, and a heart without discernment is grief to the one possessing it. A father does not delight in an uninstructed son, but a son with discernment gladdens his mother. A cheerful heart makes a man healthy, but the bones of a sorrowful man dry him up. The ways of a man who receives gifts unrighteously do not prosper, and the ungodly man shuns the ways of righteousness. The face of a wise man shows understanding, but the eyes of the man without discernment are upon the ends of the earth. A son without discernment is wrath to a father and grief to her who bore him. It is not good to punish a righteous man, nor is it holy to plot against righteous princes. He who refrains from uttering a harsh word is intelligent, and a long-suffering man has discernment. Wisdom shall be imputed to a man without understanding who asks for wisdom, and anyone who holds his peace will seem to have discernment. Notes from the previous page. 1617 Gentleness and humility are fruits of the general virtues of wisdom. Wise people place more value on these fruits than on anything associated with the arrogant, spoils. For such spoils go before destruction, v. 16. 1620 Understanding is the crown of wisdom's virtues, and it is a fountain of life to those who possess it. But without discernment one is led away from this fountain of life to evil or false fountains of instruction. 1621 The spiritual heart of a wise man is the abode of understanding. It has the eyes to see and the ears to hear wisdom and his instruction, see also Ephesians 1:18. Such a man carries knowledge upon his lips. 1629 Certain people can grow old with great dignity. Who are these? Those who have followed the general virtues of wisdom, one of which is righteousness. 1630 Self-control is one of the general virtues, and these produce all the rest, two of which are patience and control of the temper. These virtues are far superior to the military strength necessary to capture a city. 1631 The unrighteous are those who do not know and love wisdom and his virtues. Thus, they live in vice, all evil things. But all the virtues, all righteous things, have their source in the Lord. Nothing is purer than virtue, nothing more unclean than vice, for the one is brighter than the sun, the other more stinking than mire. St. John Chrysostom. 17:1 A morsel is a small amount, and it indicates the need to avoid extremes, a house full of many good things. Possessions are good in themselves, but too much of a good thing can weigh one down. These excesses lead to quarreling, which robs enjoyment in peace and even engenders unacceptable worship, unrighteous sacrifices. 17:3 The Lord chooses those he foreknows, see also Romans 8:29. He saw the chosen before he created them. He saw their spiritual hearts and the furnace of testing they would endure in their faith. For as silver and gold are refined and purified in a furnace, so are the hearts of the elect. 17:4 An evil man is righteous by nature but evil by choice. For he heeds the tongue of the lawless. But a righteous man is righteous by God, nature, and choice. Thus he pays no attention to false lips, for he chooses to live according to God and nature. 17:9 Wisdom's instruction consists of teaching, correction, discipline, reproof, learning, education, and training. Thus, it awards benefits to those using it and prospers them. 17:14 Vice, evil, cannot be removed from anyone or from his house as long as he repays evil for good. To choose to live contrary to God and nature is to repay evil for good, for he is good, and human nature is good. Such an individual cannot be removed from his vices unless he comes to repentance. 17:16 People who live contrary to God and nature conjure up false judgment. They become so deceived they judge unrighteousness as righteousness, and righteousness as unrighteousness. Such judgment is the ultimate of uncleanness and of becoming abominable before God. 17:19 True friends and brethren are begotten by wisdom, who is Christ. One who has such true friends and brethren is rich indeed, for they help him on every occasion and in necessities. 17:19-18:5 This passage is read during Friday Vespers in the 5th week of Great Lent. Words and works. A man seeks a pretext when he wishes to separate from his friends, but he shall be reproached at every opportunity. A man lacking understanding has no need of wisdom, for he is rather led by lack of discernment. When an ungodly man comes into the depth of evil things, he acts contemptuously, but dishonor and reproach come upon him. A word in the heart of a man is deep water, and a river and a fountain of life spring up from it. It is not good to admire the person of the ungodly, nor is it holy to pervert righteousness in judgment. The lips of a man without discernment lead him into evil things, and his rash mouth calls upon death. The mouth of a man without discernment is destruction to him, and his lips are the snare of his soul. Fear destroys slothful men, and the souls of cowardly men shall hunger. He who does not heal himself by his works, he is the brother of him who maltreats himself. The name of the Lord is of great strength, and when the righteous run to it, they are exalted. The substance of a rich man is a strong city, and its glory casts a great shadow. Before its destruction, the heart of a man exalts itself, and before its glory, it humbles itself. He who replies to a word before he hears it lacks discernment, and this is a reproach to him. A servant with discernment calms the anger of a man, but who can support a discouraged man? A heart of discernment gains perception, and the ears of the wise seek understanding. The gift of a man enlarges him and seats him beside princes. When a prosecutor speaks first, he seems righteous, but when the defendant examines his case, he is reproved. An allotment of land ends controversies, and it determines the boundary between princes. A brother aided by his brother is like a strong and fortified city, and he is strong like a well-founded palace. From the fruits of his mouth a man fills his stomach, and from the fruits of his lips he will fill himself to the full. Life and death are in the hand of a tongue, and those who rule over it will eat the fruits thereof. He who finds a good wife finds benefits and receives cheerfulness from God. He who casts out a good wife casts out good things, and he who keeps adulteresses is without discernment and is ungodly. Mercy and malice. A man's lack of discernment maltreats his ways, and in his heart he blames God. Wealth adds many friends, but the poor man is even forsaken by an existing friend. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he who accuses unrighteously shall not escape. Many men serve in the presence of kings, but every evil man becomes a reproach to another man. Every man who hates his poor brother, he shall be far from friendship. Good understanding will draw near those who know it, and a man with discernment will find it. He who does many evil things perfects wickedness, and he who provokes with words, he shall not be saved. He who gains discernment loves himself, and he who guards discernment will find good things. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he who kindles evil will perish by it. Luxury is not profitable for a man without discernment, and it is not good if a servant begins to rule with arrogance. A merciful man is long-suffering, and his boast goes against the lawless. The anger of a king is like the roar of a lion, but as dew upon the grass, thus is his grace. A son without discernment is a disgrace to his father, and vows paid from the wage of a prostitute are not pure. Fathers divide the house and property to their children, but a wife is suited to her husband by God. Cowardice possesses a weak man, and the soul of the idle man will be hungry. He who guards the commandment keeps his soul, but he who despises his ways shall perish. The one who has mercy on the poor lends to God, and he will repay him according to his gift. Instruct your son, for thus he shall be hopeful, but do not lift up your soul in arrogance. A malicious man shall be punished severely, and if he commits injury, he will also add this to his soul. Hear, my son, the instruction of your father, that you may become wise in your last days. There are many thoughts in the heart of a man, but the counsel of the Lord abides forever. Mercy is fruit to a man, and a poor righteous man is better than a rich liar. The fear of the Lord is unto life for a man, and he shall lodge without fear in places where knowledge is not examined. A man who hides his hands in his bosom unrighteously, he will not even bring them up to his mouth. When a pestilent man is punished, a man without discernment becomes more astute, but if you reprove a discerning man, he will understand perception. He who dishonors his father and pushes away his mother, he will be shamed and reproached. A son who forsakes guarding his father's instruction, he will think about evil sayings. He who becomes surety for an undiscerning child despises the ordinance, and the mouth of the ungodly swallows judgments. Lashes are prepared for the intemperate and punishments for the shoulders of those without discernment. Notes from the previous page. 1722 A changeable man in this case is a heart without discernment, for he does not experience the stability of wisdom's general virtues. Thus, he easily falls into evils with his tongue and into grief. 1729 He who refrains from uttering a harsh word is intelligent, because this restraint shows he possesses the general virtues of wisdom and thus has his tongue under control. He also has long suffering, a fruit of discernment, one of the general virtues. 1730 A man without understanding who asks wisdom for wisdom will receive it, for understanding is the crown of the wise. It enables one to hold his peace rather than lose his temper. And one who holds his peace will seem to have discernment, the crown of the wise. 18:1 A pretext is an excuse a man rationalizes when he wishes to separate from his friends. After this pretext is accomplished, and when his friends discover it, probably after the fact, they no longer trust him. But they reproach what he did at every opportunity. 18:4 A word is wisdom's instruction in the virtues, and when it is in the heart of a man, it is deep water. Wisdom's virtues in a man are like a river and a fountain, for life springs up from them. 18:7 A man's mouth ruins him because he is without discernment and the general virtues. Such a mouth snares his soul. His soul is good by nature, but the soul of this man is incapable of manifesting its natural virtues, for his vices block them out. 18:8 Unnatural fear, such as the fear of death, destroys slothful men, because they are too lazy to seek wisdom and his virtues. These men are cowardly, although their souls hunger. Their souls, good by nature, are starving to be fed with wisdom and his virtues. 18:10 The righteous are trained by wisdom to run to the name of the Lord, for example, by praying, Lord, have mercy. The righteous focus on his name and find great strength there. 18:14 Discouragement, or depression, is more difficult to cure than anger, for discouragement is hopelessness. At least an angry person still has fight left in him, although his anger is misdirected. And a servant with discernment is able to calm this anger. But who can support a discouraged man? The answer comes in 18:15. 18:15 Discernment, perception, and understanding are three aspects of the crown of the wise. This wise person seeks to understand from wisdom how to cure the hopelessness of the man in 18:14, provided he is willing to be cured. 18:19 A brother aided by his brother fights for the truth. The two together are like a strong and fortified city and a well-founded palace. The church is the city and palace. And the fathers of the Fifth Ecumenical Council, quoting this verse, said, "There is no other way in which the truth can be made manifest when there are discussions concerning the faith, since each one needs the help of his neighbor." 18:21 The use of one's tongue is capable of imparting spiritual life to people, but it is also capable of killing them spiritually. But those who rule over it by the general virtues of wisdom will enjoy the fruits of its wise use. 19:1 Man is good by nature, but he maltreats himself and his goodness when he does not seek wisdom and his general virtues, lack of discernment. But in his heart, he has the audacity to blame God for what he does to himself. This blame is caused by the deceptions of his own sins. He needs to accept responsibility and remove these deceptions through repentance. Then his good nature will manifest itself through wisdom. Double standards or single-mindedness. Wine is an intemperate thing, and strong drink is full of violence, and all who commingle with it will not be wise. The threat of a king does not differ from the anger of a lion, and he who provokes him sins against his own soul. It is glory for a man to turn away from reproaches, but every man without discernment is entangled with such things. A lazy man who is reproached feels no shame, likewise also is he who borrows bread in harvest. Counsel is deep water in the heart of a man, and a man with discernment will draw it out. Man is important, and a man who shows mercy is noble, but it is difficult to find a faithful man. He who lives blamelessly in righteousness, he will leave blessed children behind him. When a righteous king sits upon the throne, no evil thing can oppose his presence. Who will boast about having a pure heart? Or who will declare boldly being clean from sins? The lamp of him who reviles his father or mother shall be put out, and the pupils of his eyes shall see darkness. A portion gained hastily in the beginning will not be blessed at the end. Do not say, I will avenge myself on the enemy, but wait on the Lord, that you may be helped. A weight, great and small, and a double standard, both are also unclean before the Lord. And the one who uses these things in his pursuits will be entangled, but a young man with holiness, his road is straight. The ear hears and the eye sees, both are also works of the Lord. Do not love to speak ill, that you may not be taken away. Open your eyes, and you will be filled with bread. A double standard is an abomination to the Lord, and a deceitful scale is not good before him. Steps are made straight for a man by the Lord, but how can a mortal man understand his ways? It is a snare for a man to quickly sanctify something of his own things as holy, then after making this vow, to come to a change of heart. A wise king is a winnower of the ungodly, and he casts them upon the will of torture. The breath of man is the light of the Lord, who searches the inner man. Mercy and truth are a guard for the king, and they will encircle his throne with righteousness. Wisdom is an ornament to young men, and the glory of old men is their gray hair. Bruises and fractures happen to evil men, and plagues shall come into their inner man. Notes from the previous page. 19:6 Understanding and discernment are two aspects of the crown of the wise. Through wisdom, a man will discover them increasingly. 19:8 There is a proper love of oneself. It is to love one's good nature and the virtues implanted in it by wisdom. He who loves himself in this way will also love the wisdom who created him. From wisdom, he will increasingly gain more discernment about himself and find good things implanted there. 19:15 Man is not cowardly by nature, for wisdom implanted courage in human nature. But when a man chooses to be idle, he is too lazy to seek wisdom and his virtues. Thus, his soul starves because the natural virtues are unable to grow and develop in him. Through wisdom. 19:17 Mercy on the poor is almsgiving, which is lending to God. And he will repay him according to his gift means we cannot outgive God. 19:21 The heart of man is deep, and it entertains many thoughts. But these thoughts are useless and harmful unless they are grounded in the counsel of the Lord. This counsel is the truth of wisdom and his virtues. One grounded in this counsel will abide forever. 19:23 There are two kinds of fear in this verse. One is the fear of the Lord, which nourishes spiritual life in a man. The other is fear in places where knowledge is not examined. What place is this where wisdom's knowledge is not examined? In this fallen world where many refuse to examine such knowledge. Failure to examine wisdom's knowledge nourishes unnatural fear in man and brings on the darkness of spiritual ignorance. 19:16-25 This passage is read during Monday Vespers in the 6th week of Great Lent. 19:25 A pestilent man is a troublemaker and scoffer who refuses to be corrected by wisdom. But when he is punished by his own disobedience, a man without discernment may see this, and be motivated to seek wisdom and his astuteness. On the other hand, a discerning man is one who accepts reproof from wisdom. Thus, he gains more understanding and perception. 19:29 Lashes and punishments are prepared to teach those without restraint and those without discernment their need for wisdom and his virtues. For as Hebrews 12:6, 7 says, For whom the Lord loves he chastens, and scourges every son whom he receives. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons, for what son is there whom a father does not chasten? 20:1 Wine and strong drink are not evil in themselves. Wine is intemperate in those who drink too much of it. The same is true of strong drink when people commingle with it. Too much of either militates against wisdom and his virtues. Lack of self-control and violence to oneself, and perhaps to others, are the results. 20:5 Counsel is the virtues of wisdom implanted as deep water in the heart of a man. And discernment, the crown of the wise, is able to draw out these virtues. 20:9 Two questions are asked in this verse. In the first question, a man denies any possibility of having a pure heart, and uses this as an excuse not to pursue one. In the second question, a man denies any possibility of being cleansed from the sins he committed, and thus uses this as an excuse to sin more. To fall is not so grievous as to lie where we have fallen, nor to be wounded so dreadful as after wounds to refuse healing. St. John Chrysostom. Godliness, willing to do God's will. As a flow of water, so is the heart of the king in the hand of God, wherever he wills to incline it, there he turns it. Every man appears righteous to himself, but the Lord makes hearts right. To do righteous things and to speak the truth are more pleasing before God than the blood of sacrifices. A high-minded man is bold-hearted in his arrogance, and the lamp of the ungodly is sin. He who produces treasures with a lying tongue pursues worthless things upon the snares of death. Destruction shall entertain the ungodly, for they are not willing to do righteous things. To the crooked, God sends crooked ways, for his works are pure and upright. It is better to dwell in a corner in the open air than with wrongdoing in plastered rooms and in a shared house. The soul of the ungodly will not be shown mercy by anyone among men. When the intemperate man is punished, the simple man becomes more astute, and a wise man of understanding shall receive knowledge. A righteous man understands the hearts of the ungodly, and he despises the ungodly in their evils. He who closes his ears that he might not listen to the weak, he will also call upon someone, and there will be no one listening. A secret gift calms anger, but he who refrains from giving gifts stirs up strong anger. It is the joy of the righteous to do judgment, but a holy man is unclean before evildoers. A man who wanders from the way of righteousness shall rest in an assembly of giants. A man in need loves merriment, loving wine and oil as wealth. A lawless man is the outcast of a righteous man. It is better to live in a desert than with a contentious, talkative, and quick-tempered woman. A treasury of desire will rest upon the mouth of a wise man, but men without discernment shall swallow it. The way of righteousness and mercy shall find life and glory. A wise man assaults fortified cities and pulls down the stronghold the ungodly trust. He who guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from tribulation. A troublemaker is called rash, arrogant, and boastful, and he who bears malice is called lawless. Desires kill a slothful man, for his hands choose not to do anything. The ungodly man desires evil all day long, but the righteous man shows mercy and compassion unsparingly. The sacrifices of the ungodly are an abomination to the Lord, for they offer them lawlessly. A false witness shall perish, but an obedient man will speak guardedly. An ungodly man resists shamelessly to the face, but the upright man himself understands his ways. There is no wisdom, there is no courage, there is no counsel for the ungodly. The horse is prepared for the day of war, but help is from the Lord. Notes from the previous page. 2015 The Lord made the ear and the eye. This refers to the soul as well as the body. 4. The eyes and ears of the spiritual heart see and hear from wisdom, if they are healthy. 2017 Those who open their spiritual eyes to see wisdom will be filled with his bread of virtues, for Christ is the bread of life, John 6. 2020 A vow made to God is voluntary and not a requirement. But if a man vows quickly to set apart, sanctify, to God something he owns, but afterwards changes his heart, this becomes a snare to his relationship with God. For example, this would be true of monetary commitments made to the Lord's work. 2022 The light of the Lord is man's true breath. As healthy breathing of air in the lungs is good for a man, more so is the healthy breathing of the Lord's light in his soul. For this light searches the inner man, which is the soul of man. As a man breathes the fresh air of God's light in his soul, he is purified and cleansed from his sins. 2025 When a man refuses to breathe the fresh air of the Lord's light, v. 22, in his soul, inner man, he does evil things. These things bruise and fracture his soul, and cause him choke to death spiritually for lack of air. 21:1 A flow of water indicates the movement of the will in the heart. This movement is a free movement of the king toward God. God's will inclines the king's will in the proper direction. Thus, the two wills move in the same direction, with the king's will in willing submission to the will of God. 21:3 Righteousness is one of the general virtues of wisdom implanted in those who know and love Him. To do righteous things shows the free movement of the will in one who lives according to wisdom and his virtues. To speak the truth also shows the free movement of the will in one who declares the knowledge wisdom imparts to him. 21:6 The ungodly are those who move their free will in the wrong direction. This movement is away from wisdom and his virtues. Therefore they are not willing to do righteous things. 21:3-20 This passage is read during Tuesday Vespers in the 6th week of Great Lent. 21:10 The intemperate man is one example of a man who moves his free will in the wrong direction, the lack of self-control. The punishment he receives is his own fault. The simple man is one who is beginning to move his will toward wisdom and his virtues. Astuteness is the crown of the wise, see also 14:25, one of the general virtues. Understanding is another aspect of this crown. Therefore, when the simple man truly observes the punishment the intemperate brings on himself, he becomes wiser. 21:14 Upright judgment is one aspect of the crown of wisdom's virtues. This judgment, coupled with righteousness, produces joy. Such people are holy. Evildoers are those who willfully pursue vice or sinful passions. Since they rationalize righteousness to be unrighteousness, they see a holy man as unclean. 21:21 A wise man is one who knows and loves wisdom and his virtues. He assaults the fortified cities of his own sinful passions and pulls down the stronghold, likely the opinions of the ungodly. 21:24 Desires are blameless passions that need to be kept under control. But a slothful man refuses to control his desires. He chooses not to do anything about his spiritual laziness, therefore, his desires control him. 21:26 The alms that please the eyes of our Redeemer are not those gathered in unlawful ways and from lawlessness. We are plainly warned by Holy Scripture not to get anything by sinning under the pretext of almsgiving, Saint Gregory the Great. 21:29 The ungodly choose to live contrary to wisdom and his virtues of courage and counsel. Their negative choice shuts them out from these virtues. 21:22-30 This passage is read during Wednesday Vespers in the 6th week of Great Lent. Rich man, poor man. A good name is to be chosen more than much wealth, and good grace more than silver and gold. The rich man and the poor man meet with one another, but the Lord made both. An astute man, seeing an evil man severely punished, is himself instructed, but those passing by without discernment suffer loss. The fear of the Lord and riches and glory and life are the offspring of wisdom. Thorns and snares are in the ways of the crooked, but he who guards his own soul will keep away from them. The rich will rule over the poor, and servants will lend to their own masters. He who sows worthless things will reap evil things, and bring to an end the plague of his works. God blesses a cheerful man and a giver, and he will bring to an end the vanity of his works. He who shows mercy to a poor man shall himself be supported, for he gave his own bread to the poor man. He who gives gifts to a poor man gains victory and honor for himself, however, he who buys him takes away his soul. Cast out a pestilent man from the assembly, and contention will go out with him, for whenever he sits in the assembly, he dishonors everyone. The Lord loves holy hearts, and all the blameless are acceptable to him. A king governs lips. And the eyes of the Lord maintain perception, but the lawless man despises his words. A slothful man makes excuses and says, "There is a lion in the way, and murderers in the streets." The mouth of a lawless man is a deep pit, and the man hated by the Lord shall fall into it. Evil ways are before a man, and he does not love to turn away from them, but it is necessary to turn away from a crooked and evil way. Folly fastens itself to the heart of a child, for the rod and instruction are far from him. He who oppresses a poor man increases his possessions, yet he gives them to a rich man to lessen them. Incline your ear to the words of the wise and hear my word, and establish your heart, that you may know they are good. And if you apply them to your heart, they will gladden you and at the same time be upon your lips, that your hope might be in the Lord, and his way might be known to you. And register them upon the breadth of your heart for yourself threefold, for counsel and knowledge. Therefore, I teach you a true word and good knowledge to be obeyed, that you might answer words of truth to those who question you. Do not rob the poor, for he is needy, and do not dishonor the helpless at the gates, for the Lord will judge his cause, and you will deliver your soul from violence. Do not be a companion to an angry man and do not associate with a quick-tempered friend, lest you learn his ways and receive a snare for your soul. Do not give yourself as surety because you respect a person, for if you do not have the wherewithal to make compensation, they will take your bed out from under you. Do not remove the eternal landmarks your fathers established. An observant man and one astute in his business should be present with kings, and he should not be present with slothful men. Understanding and priorities. If you sit down to dine at a table of princes, understand carefully the things put before you, and apply your hand, knowing you should prepare certain things, and if you are insatiable, do not desire its delicacies, for these things belong to a false life. If you are poor, do not measure yourself with a rich man, but keep away from this in your thinking. If you fix your eye on him, he will disappear, for wings like an eagle's are prepared for him, and he returns to the house of his master. Do not dine with an envious man, neither desire his foods, for as someone who may swallow a hair, so he eats and drinks. Neither invite him in, nor eat your morsel with him, for he will be omitted forth and maltreat your good words. Speak nothing into the ears of a man without discernment, lest he treat your wise words with contempt. Do not remove the eternal landmarks, and do not enter the possession of orphans. For the Lord who redeems them is mighty, and he will judge their cause with you. Give your heart to instruction, and prepare your ears for words of perception. Do not withhold instruction from a child, for if you should strike him with a rod, he would not die, for you shall strike him with a rod and deliver his soul from death. My son, if your heart becomes wise, you will also gladden my heart, and your lips shall spend time with the words on my lips, if they be upright. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but be in fear of the Lord the whole day long. For if you keep these words, you shall have offspring, and your hope will not depart from you. Notes from the previous page. 22:1 A good name to be chosen more than much wealth is the name Christian, see Acts 11:26. For wisdom is Christ, and those who follow him are known by this name. And his good grace is worth more than silver and gold, for by his grace Christians live according to his virtues implanted within them. 22:4 The fear of the Lord is the offspring of wisdom, who is Christ. He is the begetter of all the virtues, described as riches and glory and life, see John 10:10. 22:5 The crooked are those who choose to live contrary to God and human nature, for in itself the soul is straight, not crooked. Thorns and snares are sinful passions. But he who guards his own soul will keep away from them. He is able to do this through wisdom and his virtues. 22:8 A cheerful man is one free from the love of money and the vainglory it produces. He is very generous in almsgiving, and blessed by God. The vanity of his works refers to those done for one's own glory. But since the cheerful man is blessed by God, his almsgiving is free from vanity and done for God's glory. 22:12 Holy hearts belong to those who live according to wisdom and his virtues. The Lord's love manifests itself in blameless hearts, and he sees these spiritual hearts which are acceptable to him. 22:16 A lawless man is one who willfully rejects wisdom and his virtues. His mouth becomes a deep pit of lawlessness. The Lord's hate for this man and his ways is hate in the sense of rejection. It is not the passion of hatred, for he is dispassionate. 22:20 When the spiritual heart inclines its ears to hear wisdom, my word, and the words of his wise people, it becomes established. This inclination is the free movement of the will toward wisdom, and the intent to obey him. 22:27 St. Paul said in agreement with this verse, "Do not be deceived, evil company corrupts good habits." 1 Corinthians 15:33. 22:30 The eternal landmarks refers to the Orthodox faith handed down in the Church. These landmarks must not be removed. I cannot sufficiently wonder at the madness of certain men, at the impiety of their blinded understanding, at their lust of error, such that, not content with the rule of faith delivered once for all, and received from the times of old, they are every day seeking one novelty after another, and are constantly longing to add, change, and take away, in religion. Saint Vincent of Lerins. 23:1-4 Understanding is one of the general virtues of wisdom. He who has this virtue understands true life. A false life, v3, is the love of riches and gourmet dining. Poor people should never measure themselves by rich people. A false life is one of deception. 23:12 The source of instruction is wisdom, who is Christ our teacher. If one gives his spiritual heart and ears to him, he will be instructed by him with words of perception. The crown of the virtues. A father's counsel on wine and women. Hear, my son, and become wise, and direct aright the thoughts of your heart. Do not be a wine-bibber, neither provide contributions of meats or goods at drinking parties. For every drunkard and fornicator shall become impoverished, and every sluggard shall clothe himself with tattered and ragged garments. Hear, my son, your father who begot you, and do not despise your mother because she has grown old. A righteous father rears his child well, and his soul rejoices in a wise son. Let your father and mother be glad in you, and let her who bore you rejoice. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways, for a house of prostitution is a pierced vessel and a strange and empty well, for he shall perish suddenly, and every lawless man shall be destroyed. Who has woe? Who has tumult? Who has condemnation? Who has unpleasantness and gossip? Who has afflictions with no purpose? Whose eyes are pale? Is it not those who linger long with wines? Is it not those who hunt for the whereabouts of drinking parties? Do not be drunk with wine, but keep company with righteous men, and keep company in public walks, for if you set your eyes to the bowls and cups, afterward you will walk about more naked than ground meat. And at last, he stretches himself out as one bitten by a serpent, and the venom spreads through him as one bitten by a horned serpent. When your eyes behold a strange woman, then your mouth will speak twisted things, and you will lie down as in the heart of the sea and as a pilot in a great storm, and you will say, they beat me, but I did not suffer, and they mocked me, but I knew it not. When will it be morning, that I may go seek those with whom I may company? Issues of life and death. My son, do not envy evil men, neither desire to be with them, for their heart ponders a lie, and their lips speak of sufferings. A house is built with wisdom, and it is built up with understanding. Storehouses are filled with perception from all honorable and good riches. It is better to be a wise man of strength and a man having discernment, than to be a man who has a large estate. War comes with the skill of a commander, but help comes with the heart of a counselor. Wisdom and good thinking are in the gates of the wise do not turn away from the mouth of the Lord, but they deliberate with counsels. Death happens to the uninstructed, and a man without discernment shall die in his sins, and uncleanness will pollute a pestilent man in an evil day and a day of tribulation, until he dies. Rescue those being led into death, and saw off the bonds of those being cast out. Do not spare them help. If you say, I do not know this man, know that the Lord knows the hearts of all, and he who formed every breath knows all things, who will render to each man according to his works. My son, eat honey, for the honeycomb is good, that your throat may be sweetened. Thus you shall discern wisdom for your soul, for if you find it, there will be a good end to your life, and hope will not abandon you. Do not bring an ungodly man to the dwelling of the righteous, neither be deceived by the full satisfaction of the stomach. For a righteous man will fall 7 times and rise again, but the ungodly shall weaken in evils. If your enemy falls, do not rejoice over him, and do not exalt yourself at his stumbling, because the Lord will see this, and it will not please him, and he will turn his anger from him. Do not rejoice in evildoers, nor envy sinners, for there is no future for evil men, and the lamp of the ungodly shall be put out. Fear God, my son, and the king, and disobey neither of them, for suddenly they will take retribution on the ungodly, and who will know the punishments of both? A son who guards the word will be free from destruction, for he receives it fully. Let no lie be spoken from your tongue to the king, and let no lie come from his tongue. The tongue of the king is a sword and not of flesh, and whoever it delivers, it will annihilate, for if his anger is sharpened, it destroys men with its sinews. And it devours the bones of men, and it burns like a flame, so as to be inedible for the nestlings of eagles. Now I say the following to you, the wise, to observe, it is not good to be partial in judgment. He who says about an ungodly man, he is righteous, shall be accursed to people and despicable to nations, but those who reprove him shall appear more excellent, and a good blessing shall come upon them, and they will kiss the lips that answer good words. Prepare your works for your going forth, and prepare yourself for the field, and walk behind me, and you shall build up your house. Do not be a false witness against your countryman, neither open wide your lips. Do not say, I will treat him as he treated me, and I shall avenge myself on him wherein he wronged me. A man without discernment is like a field, and a man in need of discernment is like a vineyard. If you leave it alone, it will remain dry and barren, altogether covered with grass and forsaken, and its stone walls will be razed to the ground. Afterward, I repented, I observed that I might choose instruction. I doze a little, and I sleep a little, and I fold my arms across my chest a little. If you do this, your poverty shall go before you, and want, like a strong runner. These are the miscellaneous instructions of Solomon which the friends of Hezekiah, the king of Judah, wrote out. The glory of God hides a word, and the glory of the king honors deeds. Heaven is high, and earth is deep, but the heart of the king is incapable of disproof. Beat drossy silver, and it will be made entirely clean. Slay the ungodly from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Do not brag on yourself in the presence of the king, neither stand in the places of princes, for it is better that it be said to you, Come up to me, than for you to be humbled in the presence of a prince. Speak the things your eyes see. Do not enter into a quarrel quickly, that you may not be sorry in the end. When your friend reproaches you, retreat and do not despise him, lest your friend continue to reproach you, and your quarrel and enmity shall not depart, but be equal to death for you. Grace and friendship free a man, keep these for yourself, that you may not be reproached, but guard your ways peaceably. As a golden apple in a small necklace of sardius stone, thus it is to speak a wise word. As a very expensive sardius stone set in a golden earring, so is a wise word to an obedient ear. As the falling of snow in harvest is beneficial against the heat, so is a faithful messenger to those who send him, for he benefits the souls of those who use him. As winds, clouds, and rains are evident, so are those who boast in a false gift. There is prosperity for kings in patience, and a mild tongue breaks bones. When you find honey, eat what is sufficient, lest being filled, you should be omitted up. Seldom visit your own friend's house, lest he become fed up with your company and hate you. As a club, a sword, and a pointed arrow, so also is the man who testifies as a false witness against his friend. The tooth of an evil man and the foot of a lawless man shall perish in an evil day. As vinegar is bad for a festering wound, so calamity befalling the body grieves the heart. As a moth in a garment and a worm in wood, so the grief of a man damages the heart. If your enemy is hungry, feed him, and if he is thirsty, give him drink. For by doing this, you shall heap coals of fire on his head, and the Lord will reward you with good things. The north wind stirs up clouds, and a shameless face provokes the tongue. It is better to dwell in a corner on a housetop than in a house shared with an abusive woman. As cold water is agreeable to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far-off land. As if someone would stop a spring and corrupt an outlet of water, so it is unseemly for a righteous man to fall before the ungodly. It is not good to eat too much honey, but it is necessary to honor words held in honor. As an unfortified city whose walls are broken down, so is a man who does something without counsel. Notes from the previous page. 23:16-19 Wisdom addresses his son, v19, and encourages him to spend time with his words, v16. The book of Proverbs is an example of his words of Holy Scripture. These words are like a door that leads into the inner sanctuary of wisdom, see also Matthew 7:7, 8. If he does this, his thoughts will be directed aright, v19. He will also learn to fear the Lord the whole day long, v17, and other virtues of wisdom, such as hope, v18, will be like offspring in him. 23:21 This verse seems to summarize verses 20 to 36. Drunkenness, fornication, and spiritual slothfulness are an unholy combination. These things leave one with tattered and ragged garments and more naked than ground meat, v31. 23:15-24:5 This passage is read during Thursday Vespers in the 6th of Great Lent. 24:3-5 Understanding, perception, and discernment are three aspects of the same thing, known as the crown of the virtues. A house is a man, and wisdom is the builder of the house, that is, he builds a man into a wise man of strength. Such a man considers wisdom and his virtues to be superior to a man who has a large estate. 24:7 Wisdom is the Lord. Counsels are the gates of the wise. Within these gates the wise deliberate together concerning the true interpretations of Scripture, the mouth of the Lord. These interpretations are the good thinking that results from their deliberations. The 7 ecumenical councils of the Church are examples of these councils. 24:10-12 Evangelism rescues those being led into death, and saws off their bonds, and does not spare them help. The evangelist has no need to know a man before he evangelizes him. For the Lord knows the hearts of all, since he formed every breath, and knows all things. At his second coming, he will render to each man according to his works. 24:13 Honey is the teaching of wisdom, and when it is eaten, it sweetens the soul. He uses honey figuratively, meaning divine doctrine, which restores the spiritual knowledge of the soul, Saint Hippolytus of Rome. 24:16-37 Righteousness is one of the general virtues of wisdom, who makes righteous a man who believes in him. This man is not yet perfect, but will always repent and choose instruction, v 37, when he falls into sin. But the ungodly shall weaken in evils, because he chooses to be weak and evil, and has no interest in repentance or instruction. 24:17 The enemy is some sinful passion one has overcome, but he should not rejoice in this victory, nor be puffed up, exalt yourself. Rather, he should rejoice in wisdom, who helped him gain the victory. We can do nothing against our faults without the help of God. And we ought not be puffed up by victories over them, lest he see your arrogant heart, and you begin to be forsaken by him, and troubled once more by that passion, which by God's grace you had previously overcome. St. John Cassian. The undiscerning man. As dew in harvest and as rain in summer, so honor is not for a man without discernment. As birds and sparrows fly, so a curse will not come upon any one without a cause. As a whip for a horse and a prod for a donkey, so is a rod for a lawless nation. Do not answer an undiscerning man in relation to his lack of discernment, lest you become like him. But answer an undiscerning man contrary to his lack of discernment, so he may not appear wise to himself. He shall drink reproach at his own feet who sends a word through an undiscerning messenger. Remove the motion of the legs and a proverb from the mouth of men without discernment. He who binds a stone in a sling is like one who gives glory to a man without discernment. Thorny plants grow in the hand of a drunkard and slavery in the hand of men without discernment. All flesh of men without discernment grievously suffers many things, for their illusion is brought to nothing. As when a dog returns to his own vomit and becomes despicable, so is a man without discernment who returns to his own evil by his own sin. There is shame that brings on sin, and there is shame that is glory and grace. I saw a man who seemed to himself to be wise, but a man without discernment has more hope than he. Notes from the previous page. 24:31 Proverbs 24:31, 32, 35, 36, A man without the discernment of wisdom is like a dried up and barren field and vineyard. The evangelist first prepares his own soul with the virtues works. Then he walks behind wisdom in the fields to water the dry and barren vineyards. 25:4 Silver shines unless it is covered with dross, the waste material that comes off in something. Human nature is good in itself, and would shine if it were not covered with the deceptions, dross, of the sinful passions. These deceptions are removed by spiritual athleticism, beat drossy silver, such as prayer and fasting. When these are removed, the natural sheen of the virtues shines from one's nature, made entirely clean. 25:5 The king's throne is a spiritual heart established in the virtues of wisdom, established in righteousness. When the sinful passions, the ungodly, are slain, this throne is established in the heart. 25:6, 7 When we conquer a sinful passion, we are told not to brag on ourselves in the presence of the king. For it was by his helping grace that we gained the victory. Rather, we boast in him alone. Otherwise, he will humble us by allowing the passion to return and overcome us. 25:8 The eyes are those of the spiritual heart. When we see the spiritual riches of Christ, then we may speak of them. See also Ephesians 1:18. 25:18 The saying is for those who try to be too spiritual too fast. Divine teaching, honey, should be swallowed a little at a time, and not treated like a gourmet table on which to gluttonize. For it will turn sour in the spiritual stomach, and be vomited up, and no longer be sweet to the taste. 25:24-25 The Lord rewards those who love their enemies. See also Matthew 5:43, 45, Romans 12:19, 20. 25:31 A man who is his own spiritual director, a man who does something without counsel, is like an unfortified city whose walls are broken down. 26:1-13 These verses describe the condition of a man without discernment. Such a man is spiritually bankrupt. But discernment is the crown of wisdom's virtues, and the man who possesses it is spiritually rich. The slothful man. A slothful man who is sent on his way says, "There is a lion in the way." As a door turns upon its hinge, so does a slothful man upon his bed. When a slothful man hides his hand in his bosom, he shall be unable to bring it to his mouth. A slothful man appears wiser to himself than he who satisfactorily brings back a message. The scheming man. As he who lays hold of a dog's tail, so is he who is the mouthpiece of another's cause. As those who need correction speak to others, he who first replies to the word shall be tripped up, so are all who set a trap for their own friends, but when they are discovered, they say, "I did it in jest." A fire rages among many trees, but where there is no disagreement, contention is at rest. As a fireplace is for coals and wood for a fire, so a contentious man kindles violence. The words of a tale-bearer are mild and they strike into the innermost affections. Money given with deceit is like a sharp piece of broken pottery, so smooth lips hide a heart that causes pain. A weeping enemy promises everything with his lips, but in his heart he devises deceits. If your enemy entreats you with a loud voice, do not consent, for there are 7 vices in his soul. He who hides enmity contrives deceit, but being well known in the assemblies, he exposes his own sins. He who digs a pit for his neighbor shall fall into it, and he who rolls a stone rolls it upon himself. A lying tongue hates the truth, and an unguarded mouth causes confusion. Wisdom for today. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what the next day will bring forth. Let your neighbor praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. A stone is heavy, and sand is cumbersome, but the wrath of a man without discernment is heavier than both. Wrath is merciless and anger passionate, but jealousy supports nothing. Open reproofs are better than hidden love. The wounds of a friend are more trustworthy than the voluntary kisses of an enemy. A satiated soul mocks honeycombs, but to a hungry soul, even bitter things appear sweet. As when a bird flies down from its own nest, so is a man enslaved whenever he becomes a fugitive from his own place. The heart delights in perfumes, wines, and incenses, but the soul is broken by mishaps. Do not abandon your friend or the friend of your father, and when you have misfortune, do not go to your brother's house. A friend nearby is better than a brother far away. My son, become wise, that my heart may be glad, and turn away from your reproachful words. An astute man hides when evils are at hand, but when men without discernment are at hand, they will pay the penalty. If a haughty man passes by, take away his garment, for he lays waste the goods of another. Whoever blesses a friend early in the morning with a loud voice, he will not seem different from one who curses him. Continual dripping on a rainy day drives a man from his house. In like manner, a contentious woman also drives a man from his own house. The north wind is a harsh wind, and a prosperous man is called harsh. Iron sharpens iron, and a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Whoever plants a fig tree will eat its fruit, and whoever guards his own master will be honored. As faces are not like other faces, so neither are the hearts of men. Hades and destruction are not satiated, in like manner the eyes of men are also insatiable. He whose eye is fixed is an abomination to the Lord, and the uninstructed are intemperate with the tongue. Proving by fire is a way of testing for silver and gold, but a man is tested by the mouth of those who praise him. A lawless heart seeks evil things, but an upright heart seeks knowledge. If you should whip a man without discernment in the midst of the council and dishonor him, you would not remove his lack of discernment. Know thoroughly the souls of your sheep, and you will set your heart on your flocks, since strength and might are not in man forever, neither are they transmitted from generation to generation. Take care of the green plants in the field, and cut the herbs short, and gather the grass of the mountains. That you may have the wool of sheep for clothing, honor the field, so there may be lambs for you. My son, You have strong sayings from me for your life and for the life of your servants. Notes from the previous page. 26:14-17 These verses describe the condition of a slothful man. His condition is akin to that of the man without discernment, for he, too, is spiritually bankrupt. But he is so deceived, he actually believes he is wise. 26:18-29 These verses describe the condition of a divisive man. He has 7 vices in his soul, v. 26. St. John Cassian in his treatise on the vices speaks of 8 of them: gluttony, unchastity, avarice, anger, dejection, listlessness, self-esteem, and arrogance. The man without discernment, the slothful man, and the divisive man exhibit such vices. 27:1 The Lord alone has foreknowledge. Neither men nor angels have foreknowledge. Men and angels, including the devil and his angels, can only guess about the future. Men and angels know the future only if the Lord reveals it to them. Therefore, no one should boast about tomorrow, for no one knows what the next day will bring forth. See also James 4:13, 16. Furthermore, one may be dead tomorrow. Hold fast then to virtue. For even so, if you depart young, you will depart in safety; if you come to old age, you will reach it safely. St. John Chrysostom. 27:2 It is acceptable for neighbors and strangers to praise a person, provided he does not seek praise from them. If he seeks and obtains it, he will praise himself with his own lips. This kind of praise is self-exaltation, a destructive passion. 27:3 A man without discernment is a man without wisdom and his virtues. This is serious enough, heavy. But add wrath to his foolishness, and his treatment of others becomes unbearable, like the weight of a heavy stone and cumbersome sand. 27:6 Judas Iscariot betrayed the Lord Jesus with a voluntary kiss, and he said of him, "It would have been good for that man if he had never been born." Mark 14:21. 27:17 Iron is a dull metal, but it glistens when sharpened. Man's nature is like iron that becomes dull through the deceptions of sin. It is good underneath, but in need of sharpening that it may glisten and show its true nature. Similarly, true friends sharpen one another so the God-given virtues may develop and shine on the countenance. 27:20-21 A fixed eye indicates an unbendable will, which refuses to be instructed in the virtues of wisdom. It never stops sinning, for example, in its intemperate use of its tongue. The sinful appetite, insatiable, of such a will is comparable to the appetite of Hades and destruction. The lawful and the lawless. An ungodly man flees when no one is pursuing, but a righteous man is confident as a lion. Condemnations arise because of the sins of the ungodly, but an astute man quenches them. A bold man harasses the poor with ungodliness. As a driving and unprofitable rain, so those who forsake the law praise ungodliness, but those who love the law surround themselves with a wall. Evil men do not understand judgment, but those who seek the Lord shall understand it in everything. A poor man walking in the truth is better than a rich liar. A wise son keeps the law, but he who cherishes luxury dishonors his father. He who increases his wealth with usury and unjust gains gathers it for him who shows mercy to the poor. He who turns away his ear so as not to hear the law, he also makes his prayer repulsive. He who leads upright men astray in an evil way, he shall fall into destruction, and lawless men shall pass by good things, but they shall not enter into them. A rich man is wise in his own eyes, but a poor man shall disapprove of his thoughts. Great glory arises because of the help of the righteous, but in places of the ungodly, men are conquered. He who hides his own ungodliness shall not prosper, but he who leads his own rebuttal shall be loved. Blessed is the man who shall be discreet in all things because of godly fear, but the man who hardens his heart shall fall into evils. A hungry lion and a thirsty wolf is he who, being poor, tyrannizes over poor people. A king in need of revenues is a great oppressor, but he who hates unrighteousness shall live a long time. He who becomes surety for a man charged with murder shall be a fugitive and unsafe. Instruct your son, and he shall love you, and he shall give honor to your soul, lest he follow a lawless people. He who walks righteously shall be helped, but he who walks in crooked ways shall be entangled therein. He who works his own land shall be satisfied with bread, but he who pursues leisure shall be filled with poverty. A trustworthy man shall be blessed in many things, but an evil man shall not go unpunished. He who does not respect righteous people is not good, such a man will sell another for a morsel of bread. An envious man hastens to be rich, but does not know that a merciful man shall have the mastery over him. He who reproves a man's ways shall have more grace than he who flatters him. He who casts off his father or mother and thinks he does not sin, he is the accomplice of an ungodly man. A greedy man judges rashly, but he who trusts in the Lord shall be careful. He who trusts in an arrogant heart, such a man is without discernment, but he who walks in wisdom, such a man shall be saved. He who gives to the poor shall not be in want, but he who turns away his eye from them shall be in much distress. The righteous lament in the places of the ungodly, but in their destruction the righteous shall be increased. The wise and the unwise. A reproving man is better than an obstinate man, for when the latter is suddenly consumed, there shall be no remedy. When the righteous are praised, the people shall rejoice, but when the ungodly rule, men lament. When a man loves wisdom, his father rejoices, but he who keeps prostitutes shall destroy his wealth. A righteous king will establish a country, but a lawless man razes it to the ground. He who prepares a net for the presence of his own friend casts it around his own feet. It is a great snare to a man when he sins, but a righteous man shall be in joy and gladness. A righteous man understands how to judge on behalf of the poor, but the ungodly man will not consider such knowledge, for he has no understanding heart for a poor man. Pestilent men burn down a city, but wise men turn away wrath. A wise man judges people fairly, but when a worthless man is angry, he laughs at them, and does not fear. Bloodthirsty men will hate a holy man, but the upright will seek his soul. A man without discernment brings forth his whole mind, but a wise man distributes his in part. When a king obeys an unrighteous word, all those under him are lawless. When a creditor and a debtor meet with one another, the Lord watches both of them. When a king judges the poor truly, his throne shall be established as a testimony. Blows and reproofs give wisdom, but a child who goes astray shames his parents. When the ungodly are many, there are many sins, but when they fall, the righteous are fearful. Instruct your son, and he shall give you rest, and he will delight your soul. There shall be no interpreter of the law for a lawless nation, but he who guards the law is very blessed. A stubborn servant will not be instructed by words, for even if he understands them, he will not obey. If you see a man hasty in words, know a man without discernment has more hope than he. He who lives luxuriously from childhood shall be a servant, and in the end, he shall cause himself pain. An angry man digs up strife, but a furious man digs up sins. Arrogance humbles a man, but the Lord supports the humble-minded with glory. He who takes part with a thief hates his own soul, and if, when an oath is set forth, those who hear it do not report it, they are tripped up, because they fear and stand in awe of men, but he who trusts in the Lord will rejoice. Ungodliness causes a man to stumble, but he who trusts in the Master shall be saved. Many serve in the presence of leaders, but righteousness comes to a man from the Lord. An abomination to the righteous is an unrighteous man, and the upright way is an abomination to the lawless. Notes from the previous page. 27:22 A man praised by others faces a dangerous crossroad, where few survive. Spiritually, one road leads to self-exaltation and thence to destruction. The other leads into a furnace of fire in which the silver and gold of one's nature is purified by wisdom and his virtues. 27:23 A lawless heart is one which voluntarily turns away from wisdom and his virtues. Thus it seeks the vices, evil things. But an upright heart voluntarily seeks wisdom and his general virtues and their fruits. 27:25 See John 10:27, 28. 28:1 An ungodly man is one who lives contrary to God and his God-given nature. He lives in the unnatural fears of his own imaginations, when no one is pursuing. Thus, he lives in unreality and cowardice. But a righteous man lives in the reality of wisdom and his virtues, in which he is confident as a lion. 28:2 It is sometimes said, and rightly so, condemn no man, and you will be saved. An astute man knows wisdom and his virtues, thus in himself he condemns no one. His demeanor also helps quench condemnations when they arise. 28:5 Evil men are those who voluntarily live in vice, for they do not have upright judgment, one of wisdom's general virtues. But those who seek the Lord and possess his virtues understand upright judgment in everything. 28:9 Wisdom, who is Christ, is the lawgiver, and his law teaches virtue. Therefore, he who turns away his ear so as not to hear the law makes his prayer repulsive to the lawgiver. 28:13 The righteous are those made righteous by wisdom. When they help one another conquer their sinful passions, great glory arises, that is, God is glorified. But in places where ungodly people influence others, men are conquered by the vices. 28:14 An unwise man hides his own ungodliness, thus he cannot prosper spiritually. But a wise man takes the initiative to remove his deceptions of sin through repentance. Leads his own rebuttal. Such a man prospers in the love of God. 28:20 God's grace makes a man righteous and helps him walk righteously. But a transgressor walks in crooked ways, which entangle him. Crooked ways are the sinful passions. 28:28 A man without discernment is a man without wisdom and his virtues. This man trusts in an arrogant heart. How foolish and lost this man is! But he who walks in wisdom and his virtues, such a man shall be saved. 28:30 The places of the ungodly refers to this fallen world. The righteous live in the world, but they lament its condition. For blessed are those who mourn, Matthew 5:4. When the righteous convert the ungodly, sinful passions are destroyed, in their destruction. Thus, righteous people increase. 29:1 A reproving man is one who first reproves himself. Afterwards he is able to help others discipline themselves in spirituality. An obstinate man is one who rejects wisdom and his virtues, and pursues vice. But when his vices suddenly consume him, he cannot be cured, no remedy. A father's wisdom. My son, fear my words, and when you receive them, repent. The man says these things to those who believe in God, then I cease speaking, for I am the most lacking of all men in discernment, and the discernment of men is not in me. God gives me wisdom, and I know holy things. Who ascends into heaven and descends? Who gathers the winds in his bosom? Who wraps up the water in a garment? Who rules over all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is the name of his children, that you might acknowledge it? All the words of God are tried in fire, and he defends those who fear him. Do not add to his words, that he might not reprove you, and you become a liar. 2 things I ask from you, do not take away grace from me before I die, make a vain word and a lie be far from me, but give me neither riches nor poverty, and appoint what is necessary and sufficient for me, lest being full, I become a liar and say, who sees me? Or being poor, I steal, and swear by the name of God. Do not deliver a servant into the hands of his master, lest he curse you, and you be destroyed. An evil offspring curses his father and does not bless his mother. An evil offspring judges himself righteous, but is not washed from his uncleanness. An evil offspring has haughty eyes and exalts himself with his eyelids. An evil offspring has teeth like swords and molars like knives, so as to destroy and to devour the poor from the earth, and their needy from among men. Lessons from the animals. The leech had 3 dearly loved daughters, and these 3 did not satisfy her, and the 4th did not satisfy her, for her to say, "It is enough." Hades and the love of a woman and Tartarus and the earth not satisfied with water and fire will not say, "It is enough." The eye that mocks his father and dishonors the old age of his mother, let the ravens of the valleys pick it out, and the young eagles devour it. Now there are 3 things I cannot understand, and a 4th I do not know, the track of a flying eagle, and the ways of a serpent upon a rock, and the paths of a ship passing through the sea, and the ways of a man in his youth. Such is the way of an adulterous woman, who, when she commits adultery, washes herself and says she did nothing wrong. The earth is shaken by 3 things, and is unable to bear a 4th, if a servant reigns, or a man without discernment is satiated with food, or if a maidservant casts out her own mistress, or a hateful woman marries a good man. Now there are 4 very small things upon earth, but these are wiser than the wise, the ants, which are not strong, yet they prepare provisions in the summer, the rabbits, which are not a strong tribe, yet they make their own homes in the rocks, the locust, which is without a king, yet he marches out as one commanded in an orderly manner. And the spotted lizard, which supports himself with his hands and is easily caught, yet he dwells in the fortresses of kings. There are 3 things which walk easily, and a 4th that strides well, the cub of a lion, stronger than other animals and does not turn away, neither fears any animal, a cock, walking about boldly among the hens, a he-goat, leading a flock, and a king, speaking publicly to the people. If you abandon yourself to merriment and stretch forth your hand with contention, you will be dishonored. Churn milk, and it will become butter, and if you squeeze someone's nose, blood will come out, and if you draw out words, condemnations and contentions will emerge. My words were spoken by God, the oracular response of a king, whom his mother instructed. Notes from the previous page. 29:6 The vices, or sinful passions, are a great snare to a man. But a righteous man is one who loves wisdom and his virtues, thus he lives in joy and gladness. 29:10 Bloodthirsty men are first of all the demons, and secondly, those influenced by them. They hate a holy man and are out for his blood. But the upright seek him out. To learn how to increase in holiness. 29:19 Wisdom's instruction incorporates several aspects: teaching, correction, discipline, reproof, learning, education, and training. A stubborn servant is one who intends not to obey instruction, even though he may understand something of what is taught. 29:23 The Lord allows a man's arrogance to humble him, so, if possible, he might learn humility. But the Lord only supports the humble-minded with the glory of his virtues. 29:25-26 The fear and awe of men trip up growth in the virtues. Such fear and awe constitute ungodliness that causes a man to stumble. But he who trusts in the Master fears him, and rejoices in salvation. 29:27 Righteousness is the Lord's righteousness. Man is not its source. For example, leaders cannot impart righteousness to those who serve them. But the Lord easily and freely imparts righteousness to those who serve him. 30:1 Those who believe in God will fear his words, and this fear will lead them to repentance. 30:2-3 One cannot know God through worldly wisdom, which God considers foolishness. See also 1 Corinthians 1:20, 21. 30:4 This verse asks 6 questions. The answer to the first 5 is Christ. The answer to the 6th is Christian, the name of his children. 30:5-6 see Revelations 22:18, 19. 30:7-8 One of the 2 things asked relates to the means of living a virtuous life, namely, the grace of God. For apart from his grace no one can live a virtuous life. O Lord, do not take away grace from me before I die. The second request is for the necessities of life. V8. 30:11-15 Evil offspring are the sinful passions, and the devil is their father, John 8:43, 44. But this also applies to evil offspring in a family. 30:16-35 Numerous animals are mentioned, the leech, the raven, the eagle, the serpent, the ant, the rabbit, the locust, the lizard, the lion's cub, the cock, and the he-goat. These animals and the other situations described emphasize the opposition of wisdom and his virtues to the sinful passions. For example, the sinful passions are like the leech, v16. For these, so to speak, drain the blood out of one's spiritual life. But the wise are like the rabbit, v28, for their home is wisdom, who is Christ, the rocks. A mother's wisdom. What, my child, will you keep? What? The words of God. My firstborn son, I say to you, what, the child of my womb? What, the child of my vows? Do not give your wealth to women, nor your heart or life to remorse. Do all things with counsel, drink wine with counsel. Princes are prone to anger, but let them not drink wine, lest while they drink, they forget wisdom, and be unable to judge the weak uprightly. Give strong drink to those in sorrow, and wine to drink for those in pain, so they may forget their poverty and no longer remember their grief. Open your mouth for the word of God, and judge all men fairly. Open your mouth and judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and helpless. A virtuous wife. Who will find a courageous wife? For such a one is more valuable than precious stones. Omega the heart of her husband trusts in her, she will not be at a loss for fine spoils, for she provides good things for her husband all her life. She weaves wool and linen cloth and is productive with her hands. She is like a ship trading afar off, so she procures her livelihood. She also rises before dawn and gives food to her household, and appoints tasks for her maidservants. Seeing a farm, she buys it, and from the fruits of her hands she plants her plot of land. Strongly girding her loins, she strengthens her arms for work. She experiences work as a good thing, and her lamp is not quenched all night. She extends her arms to do profitable things, and she applies her hands to the spindle. She opens her hands to the poor and reaches out with her fruit to the needy. Her husband is not anxious about those at home when he spends a long time elsewhere, for all her household are clothed. She makes a double upper garment for her husband and garments of fine linen and purple for herself. Her husband is respected at the gates and when he sits in council with the elders who inhabit the land. She makes and sells fine linens and girdles to the Canaanites. She opens her mouth carefully and lawfully and controls her tongue. She clothes herself with strength and dignity and rejoices in the last days. She runs her household carefully, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. She opens her mouth wisely and lawfully, and her charity raises her children, and they become rich, and her husband praises her. Many daughters acquire riches, many do mighty things, but you excel and surpass all. Desires to please are deceitful, and the beauty of a wife is vain, for a wise wife is blessed, and let her in fear praise the Lord. Give to her from the fruits of her hands, and let her husband praise her at the gates. Notes from this page. 31:1, 2 God is the author of the book of Proverbs, and his words are to be kept by his children. 31:10-30 A courageous wife is one who knows wisdom and his virtues. Her value is priceless to her husband. She is an icon of the church, the bride of Christ. For she is to her husband what the Church is to Christ. 31:10:30 This passage is read during Friday Vespers in the 6th week of Great Lent.